Howdy, howdy, folks, and welcome back to another edition of the ONETA Football Show, brought to you by PTE Creative. As always, I'm your host, Evan Davies, and with me, once again, I have proof of friends. It's my boy, Brandon Hullings, in a beautiful jersey today, which I'm sure he'll be so thrilled to talk about. The Giants guy wearing a Jets jersey is a bit interesting to see, nonetheless.
I'm sure. Thanks again for having me back. I'm excited to be here. As I'm sure you'll go into a little bit, this is certainly on theme. It is a very specific wearing the Lawrence Taylor number because that's what everybody thought he was going to be coming out in a Vernon Golston. I remember actually watching him play when I was out in college in Ohio and just being absolutely stunned at, single season sack records at Ohio State and just being absolutely dominant and saying, man, I have hope for this guy, hint, hint. So, and I clearly was wrong. So it's a nice reminder to always take it, even your own opinions with a grain of salt. But I'm excited for today's exercise.
Correct. No, it's a great way to say it. Today, we are in full prep mode. Next week, we're going to do the first week's preview, or at least I am, and if whoever can join me will join me. But we're going over the basics today of hope or no hope. That's really what we're looking at. Do we believe a team has hope, or do we have hope for this team, or do we have zero hope in sight for this team? And there's differing things that you have to talk about, and we'll talk about each team's standards as we do it. But really, we're just telling fan bases whether we believe they should have some hope this season or not. The only qualifier I'll give before anything is this. I know you are probably of a similar wavelength from our previous discussion. This does not mean if we say a team has hope that they're automatically going to win the Super Bowl. Like that's not
100%.
That's not how this works. Any alleged expert,
quote unquote,
who's going to tell you there's hope, they're going to win the Super Bowl this year as a definitive, is inherently wrong, and you should not listen to them 99 times out of 100. This isn't Mayock predicting 2005 Aaron Rodgers slide to 24. Right. That's a once in a lifetime kind of thing to see. So I will let you start the floor. We're going to inherently start negative because why not? So your first team that you have no hope in whatsoever.
Yeah, and again, staying within the AFC East here, I'm going to go with the Miami Dolphins, which I'm sure has everybody stunned. But I know off mic we've certainly had our discussions about how I feel about the Dolphins and their current structure and everything else. But I do want to give a little bit of a caveat here in terms of I'm not saying again the Dolphins are going to pick first this year. I am just
in
terms of hope. In my notes, right, this is hopes or nopes. In terms of this is a nope for me. In terms of this is not a team where looking at the Vegas totals for their wins, looking at what projection wise, even for fantasy football wise, the stats they expect some of these players to put up. And just the overall trajectory of this team, I'm just not in line with. And it really starts with our favorite player, Tua Tagovailoa. I just want to start with he did some good. I don't want to throw anything over. He had the highest PFF passing grade. He had a 6% big time throw percentage. Big time throw percentage is a PFF. I'm going to do my best to define my terms each time I use it for the first time and then try to move on. But a big time throw percentage is essentially a PFF statistic, Pro Football Focus statistic, that basically tries to chart how willing a quarterback is to throw a ball into a tight space down the field. It's usually marked as at least a 10-yard pass that travels at least 10 yards down the field in the air, and a defender within a yard of the receiver. So graded out extremely well there in terms of his pass grade. He was the lowest rated rushing quarterback in the league, lower than Daniel Jones, and this includes sacks, obviously. So lower than Daniel Jones, lower than Tyrod Taylor, lower than Zach Wilson. He was the worst quarterback in the NFL in terms of rushing stat. He had the highest, despite having the best passing grade, he had the highest rated turnover play rate. And that is, I think, indicative of the Mike McDaniel's offense just being like, Tua, throw this ball blind, throw it to a spot, and Tyreek Hill will just beat the guy there, or Jalen Waddle will beat the guy there. And he's, Jalen Waddle more so than Tyreek Hill has paid the price for that, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But certainly, wanted to say that there is some good with some bad here. And the biggest thing with him is he was the second worst rated passer when pressured in the NFL, rated by PFF, besides our favorite player, Daniel Jones. So anytime he's getting any pressure around him, he is essentially, and the ball is not out, he's essentially useless. The other part of this is the price you're paying to keep him at this point. Right?
Yeah.
4-year, $212 million contract. It's $53.1 million a year. It's not as bad as I first thought because it is a year-to-year contract in terms of a lot of this money is tied to a roster bonus. But this is his cap hits for the next 3 years. You ready? 50 million, 59.4
Oh
million,
my god.
and then $63.4 million against the cap
You
for the next
fucking
3 seasons.
you fucking kidding me right now?
It is an unbelievable for if you're going to be paying a quarterback those kinds of numbers, he has to be the reason you're winning. He can't be a system quarterback. And I think anybody who knows is worth their salt in the football world can take the eye test of two and see this offense works because Mike McDaniels is brilliant and he's using things that you know other teams in the league. You're modifying the Shanahan offense. You're using motion in unique ways. You get that game against the Chargers where it looks like they figure you out, and then he changes the way that motion kind of happens for Tyreek Hill, and it immediately has an answer, which is again a sign of a great coach being able to adjust sort of on the fly.
Correct.
But again, the offense works because you have the fastest team in the league, right? You have Tyreek Hill who had 1,799, but 1,800 yards despite missing 2 games. You have Jalen Waddle, who was a top 6 pick in the NFL draft, who ran 4.31. You can pay Terron Armstead to be your left tackle. You can't sustain that if your cap hits are 59, $63 million, right? People are going to have to start dropping off. And you run into that problem, specifically, when you watch that playoff game against Kansas City, and I know it was cold and the weather's a whole thing, but when they get good on good, Tua can't elevate against the better team, right?
No,
when you can get
he cannot. He physically cannot do that.
Yeah. You get the ability to match up with a Trent McDuffie who can sort of limit a little bit of Tyreek Hill's play. Obviously, still that long touchdown because he's Tyreek and he's voted by the NFL as the best player in the league.
Which is wrong, but he should be top 5. It's wrong,
Listen,
but he should be top 5.
I don't have a vote. I don't have a vote. But you watch him just struggle in that game, and you realize that it is more of a product of Mike McDaniels than anything else. And the other thing is the Dolphins as a team had the worst point differential against playoff teams of any team in the NFL. Worse than the Giants, worse than the Patriots. Against specifically teams that made the playoffs, they had the largest point differential against them, obviously in the NFL. It is weird, and I try to not go all negative because I'm a little. I'm not the biggest fan of Tua, but I do say he has value because of Mike Daniels' vision and how he runs this system. They drafted Tua in the sense of I need a guy who will do what Jimmy Garoppolo did in the early stages of this revolutionary Kyle Shanahan offense. And I want him to have the ball out in less than 2 seconds. I want that to be at a spot. I'm not throwing a receiver. I want him to trust it blind, and I want him to throw a catchable, which if you remember when they talked about Tua, they said he had the most catchable ball in the league.
Yeah.
Back and said I agree. And catchable is I don't know how you define that, but in terms of he's placing the ball where McDaniels wants him to at that time in rhythm. That is a hard thing to do. If you're a quarterback if you're Josh Allen, you can't do that, right? That's not your game.
No.
So intrinsic value to that specific offense, he is valuable. However, you had to build the best, most unique, fastest offense in the league for him to get eliminated and paying that guy $63 million against your cap. It just doesn't make me.
It's fucking wild. My greatest concern with Tua is exactly as you put it. There is enough value to blind people, and I've never said Tua is the worst quarterback. I have no faith in Tua. It's well known on this show. I have zero faith in it. You've heard far worse versions of that in the Family Giants garage. So,
absolutely.
However, I certainly don't want even $40 million against my cap for, in my opinion, below league average play. That's not what I'm paying for. Yeah. If you told me I can get Tua in a Shanahan McDaniel style offense for 25, I'd be like, let's save the money. Let's go with Tua. Let's. To me, if he lasts this contract I'll be flabbergasted. Well, actually, no, because Miami's proven to make some stupid decisions, so I can't necessarily argue that with logical points because we're not in a world of logic.
I can.
But
I got one couple. It's a good. I'll follow up with you on that, but go ahead.
But Tua is a huge concern to operate this team. Tyreek Hill, although has proven to stay pretty healthy, has been starting to get a couple nicks and bruises throughout the last couple seasons that he has played, going back to his days in Kansas City. Jalen Waddle, as you said, is getting murdered, just murdered on some of these routes. I don't think Odell is a major contributor anymore, but I don't think you want
Yeah.
your number 3 or 4 receiver starting on your pup list. I don't think that's
Yep.
good at all. You lost Robert Hunt in the guard position, so you already have a hole in the middle
Yep.
to protect a fragile quarterback who relies on speed.
Yeah.
Well, if you can't get the ball out fast enough because there's a guy in your face faster than 2 seconds, that's going to be a problem.
Right.
So the
Right.
offensive
Especially over the
composition
summer.
is downhill in those aspects. Plus, I don't have any faith in their defense to stay healthy
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Yeah. And it's it's a lot of really good points there that I also had on there. This just to specifically jump off of it, Tua almost medically retired last year because of the concussions.
Yeah.
And now you have made his offensive line worse. He's going to take more hits again. Just I don't know how you can invest that kind of money in him when you let both your trenches get rated. And you kind of hit on that with Robert Hunt leaving. You forget Bradley Chubb, torn to an ACL late last year. Jalen Phillips tore his Achilles, which does not have the recovery time that an ACL does nowadays.
No.
You lose Christian Wilkins, excuse me, to wrong team there.
Yeah.
To a huge deal to the Raiders, and then you also lose Van Ginkel, which people don't talk about a ton. But just between Wilkins and Van Ginkel, they're losing 100 pressures out of their defense. 100 of their pressures came from just those two players. And Wilkins lost their highest graded run defender, their best pass rush run rate. Terry Armstead only played 10 games last year. Like, this is not a team that stays specifically healthy. So again, that health, especially in Trent, like losses to free agency and losses to health, I think are really going to affect this team moving forward. And then just to kind of circle back a little bit on the leadership part, which you sort of spoke of in terms of just making poor choices. I think Chris Greer has done some good things. McDaniel obviously had to get that opportunity. He bought into the vision. They trade down for that Trey Lance trade and get Tyreek Hill as pieces of that. But outside of that, to take Tua over Justin Herbert is a franchise debilitating choice. Again, in hindsight, it's 2020 because we don't really talk about it that much. But you can't let that happen. You also have let 3 different players, which is maybe leaning towards this. Hey, we had to pay the quarterback. Christian Wilkins leaves. You've also in years past left Mika Fitzpatrick and Laramie Tunsil leave because of contract disputes. 3 players who are still making all-pro rosters at this time and have had second and third contracts with the teams that you traded them or let them go to.
Yep.
Willingness to not even keep your own talent in the building, which is sort of what you were going to before. And then the Trey Lance deal. We really don't talk enough about how bad it was because the Niners kind of figured it out and got very lucky with Purdy, and Kyle Shanahan is just a magician, for lack of a better term. But Miami didn't turn that into much. Miami only turned those picks into Jalen Waddle, who I do like. We talked about he's getting blown up, but he's incredibly explosive. People forget, Puka Nacua set the single season reception record. That was Jalen Waddle's record the year before with a game less. This is a guy that can be a field stretcher, but can also be a possession guy. He, again, rookie year set the receptions record. Second year led the league in yards per reception. So, obviously has the ability to do both. So I'm not crapping on Waddle. I like him a lot.
Yeah.
But now because of the Tua trade, because of the Hill trade, you've made him a 2, right? He's not your 1 anymore. And then you really only got Bradley Chubb after that because you use those other picks to trade with Denver for Bradley Chubb, who, again, is a good player, but it can't stay healthy and is not a high level edge that you need to kind of make those picks worth it. So don't end up with Waddle and Chubb out of those picks for the Trey Lance deal. Just doesn't feel like enough. So leadership, the issues with health, the issues with Tua, I think are why I'm more out on this team than consensus is.
I mean, you've put it spot on. Another player I wanted to highlight with an injury history right now that they're depending on a lot to be a difference maker is Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah.
Jalen can't stay on the field for a whole season. When was the last time Jalen had a full season of play? Or even close to a full season?
Right. Yeah, I couldn't tell you offhand. I mean, I guess the Rams Super Bowl year, probably.
Probably. And that's that's saying a lot. And that's where I'm just looking at this is a team of... We talk about this all the time. This is a highlight team. This is a team with stars. Okay, great. You got stars. Do they play? Do they make a difference? No.
Right.
Not in the end of the game. Obviously, we have the utmost faith that it's probably obvious the best wide receiver duo in the league is probably Hill and Waddle.
Yeah.
There's not much argument outside of A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and Jamar Chase, T. Higgins.
Yeah, that's probably it. Those would
That
be the two.
those are the only two that those are the only two
I would say
duos I
no.
can
I
think
would
of.
take Jalen Waddle over either of those guys. I think you'll
I would
get
too.
more pushback on. Like it's regionality, but I think AJ Brown and Smith you get a little more pushback on than Chase and Higgins at this point. But yeah, 100% agree.
And it's just a concern for me is what I don't. The reason I would say no hope, and I completely agree with this. I didn't have Miami in my no hope category, but if I had to pick one or the other, I would be going no hope.
Mm-hmm.
Is this team is being paid to win a Super Bowl, and I don't think this team can win a divisional playoff game.
Agreed.
And
Especially,
if they do, it has to be this team falls to this seed and they got this one and they eked this out, and it's like you made an AFC
100%.
Championship game off of a
Yeah.
fluke of mathematics,
Yeah.
not you just were
Yeah.
bulldozing teams over. And
Yep.
it's so sad in today's modern NFL. Growing up in Green Bay, where until 2004 or 2003, the mystique is you can't play in cold weather if you're from the South.
Right.
And it's broken by
Right.
Michael Vick, and then ever since then, Green Bay has
Yeah.
struggled in the cold in the playoffs, ironically enough, even though they
Yeah.
do really well in the regular season. And yet,
Right.
how is it in 2024 in which we have all the science in the world to keep our players healthy, strong during those times, warm so they're less injury prone, all those things? How is it that not only can you not win, you're incapable of playing in the cold? And we've seen other teams do it. It's not as it, it's not like there's much difference between Tampa and Miami playing in the cold. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And all of
Yep.
a sudden, they go to cold weather places. It doesn't matter if it's the Kansas City game, some of the Buffalo games. They just can't play.
Yeah.
This isn't middle school football. Like,
Right.
and it sounds like such a boomer thing to say,
Yeah.
but the data tells you that it's correct. And that's
Yeah.
the problem that I have with this team. Is this team, I would argue, is a no hope team, and I think you're spot on, because you do not have hope to win a Super Bowl with this team. You have a hope to be a playoff team. Yeah.
Yeah.
If that's your goal, this is a great team to pick. But if your goal is to win the Super Bowl, you do not have hope. And I do not.
I agree.
I would argue that entirely.
Yeah. I don't. If I had to do it right now, I don't think I'd have Miami making the playoffs. If I'm honest with you, I don't think they have the juice. I think the third. Again, it's hard to project health, obviously, and that is what it is. But if injury history does repeat itself and you have these problems and this depth, like, I don't see how if Aaron Rodgers is 75% of himself, that Jets defense doesn't carry that other 25, and he's still good. And then obviously, Josh Allen's Josh Allen. Josh Allen's the guy they want Tyreek Hill Tua to be. I don't know how they're not the third best team in their division. New England's a mess, so we don't have to worry about them. But I think they're the third best team in that division. So,
well, you know what? I'll be kind then, and I'll go to my next no hope, and I'll stay right in the division. And that's called the fucking New England Patriots. There is no hope for this team.
Professional podcasting.
So, again, qualifiers, whatever you want to call them, for the Patriots.
Yeah.
No one's expecting this team to make a playoff push. And if they are, they're delusional.
Right.
And I'm a huge Jacoby Brissett fan, actually. I love the guy. Yeah. You know me. I would take Jacoby Brissett over half the starters in the league half the time, because at least he's willing to say, my guy's fast. Fuck it. I'll just throw it.
Yeah, just throw it up there, baby.
And half the time he doesn't give the credit he deserves for just giving guys a chance. And sadly, in a league now middling with a lot of average play, that can take you over the top. Geno Smith is a perfect example of that.
Yep.
But I'm looking through, I'm forcing myself when I'm watching this team, even in the preseason, when they are playing their starters, to go, who's on this team? How is this team going to score points? How is this team going to... The thing is that last year, the only thing that made their box scores even remotely competitive is Bill Belichick's mastery of a defensive scheme.
Yes.
It was
100%.
abundantly clear that Bill had lost the plot offensively and just kind of given up on it, essentially. Yeah. That's what it looks like, especially at the end of the year. But he's playing teams where they're scoring 3 points, 6 points, 9 points. Like, they're still competitive last year with an absolute trash roster.
Yep.
Now you're going to an unproven coach who his only experience is the later regime Belichick year Patriots that don't highlight very well. Even in their Super Bowl years, you're still like, they didn't really deserve to win the big one.
Right.
So you have an unproven coach with a middle ground quarterback with no great offensive line help other than Shaq Mason. You have Antonio Gibson as your best running
Shaq
option.
Mason's not there.
Oh, what shocked me? Oh, yeah, shit, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's
Even worse than you thought it was. He's in
Owenwu.
Tampa.
I'm sorry, Owenwu. I had those names on a similar list doing something,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's why
Gotcha.
I saw Shaq Mason
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, Shaq. I was like, no, it's Owenwu. Owenwu's not
Yeah.
bad. I don't think he's a world
No,
beater,
not.
but he's not
Yeah.
bad.
And he's one player on a
Yeah,
5-person
he's one person on a 5-person trench.
line. Mm-hmm.
And Kendrick Bourne is your best receiving threat, or Hunter Henry, who he stayed healthy twice in his entire career.
It's hard, and this is 100% agree. This is not a team. This is the team that Vegas has as the number one pick next year in terms of lowest win totals. Last time I looked, I don't know if that's fluctuated since then. To kind of get on your point, I don't know if you watched the most recent New England Patriots preseason game, but
I
Brissett
did.
got hurt because he had no protection. He landed on his right shoulder. Mayo came out and said, if we had to play, he could have. But the thing, if I were to give some hope. Drake May looks like the real deal. Like I get why the Giants wanted to come up, and I know it's preseason, it's a whole thing, but like you watch that touchdown that came back, he rolls to his left, he's running out of bounds, he's got to make a desperate play to throw it. And if you're trying to win games, which like I don't know that New England really wants, like if I'm in New England spot, I'm trying to tank and make sure I get a top 3-4 pick because this year's draft class has some great offensive tackles, some great corners, some things that New England kind of needs.
Yeah.
But like Drake May looks fun. You just have to make sure you don't Sam Darnold him and have him seeing ghosts because like they are running for their lives from the interior of that line. There's just like we when we did our expansion draft, we Sidney Zow was the only one that we recognized as a starter on that line, and we didn't know who he was when he took him. So again, the offensive line is my biggest concern because the weapons are a problem, but man, the pressure rate is going to be
astronomical.
It's going to be tough for even a seasoned person like Jacoby, let alone Drake May as a rookie coming in. To sort of that. I do want to touch back. I do think New England played above their weight last year with I 100% agree. Belichick had his fastball, right? It's like that pitcher that comes in and he can only throw that 98-mile-an-hour fastball, and sometimes he can get it by you, and sometimes he can't. But like he doesn't have the curve anymore. He doesn't have the slider. Doesn't have the sinker. He doesn't have anything else. But he can throw that one pitch, and he will take what you do best away from you. I mean, you go back to that Eagles game to open the season last year, the New England defense outscored the offense. They had 2 defensive touchdowns. They were up. They had a horrible interception towards the end of the game that gave it to Philly, but they had the Philly on lock, which again, New England,
they outplayed Philly straight up. They outplayed Philly that day.
Which is a much more talented team. So I agree with you on Belichick kind of having that quote unquote having the fastball still or having his one thing. But yeah, the weapons are a problem. The offensive line is the biggest problem. Christian Barmore, who I think is their best defensive player, just went on IR. You trade Matthew Judon for a third, which like I get the third's okay value, I guess, because like, if you include the contract, but for what you're going to get in the third round is not going to be the level of player Matt Judon is. I like Christian Gonzalez coming back. When he was healthy against Tyreek Hill in that Miami matchup, he had a pretty good coverage grade and he played him pretty well. But he's already shown he can't stay healthy. We've talked about staying healthy. I don't have a lot, and I agree that New England wasn't on my list because again, I just don't know that anybody has any hope for them. And I was trying to be a little different, but like this is going to be a rough season in New England, and I unless Drake May is Michael Vick 2.0 and can escape and run like that, I don't know how he's going to survive.
Well, the thing about it is it's all that framework again of how do you define hope or no hope.
Right.
I don't immediately think, oh, new quarterback, we're gonna win, right? For instance, last year you heard my private discussions about this, and it just so happened the podcast happened after Jordan Love turned into something. I was cautiously optimistic last year, and I said I'm hoping for, in a realistic world, 8-9, 9-8 with some competent play to show me Jordan can play. And obviously he outplayed that, and obviously that team developed way faster than I thought they would. at least at the end of
Like
that
Daniel
season.
Jones was. Yeah.
And then in the same token, I look at early Kyler Murray teams in Arizona that were utterly trash, but they were fun to watch. They were competitive, and within 2 years, even with Cliff Kingsbury, they were making playoffs, and they had no business being there because there was just a vibe and an energy there that there's hope. And even with 5-11 teams, you can say hope. I look back at that Flores-led Dolphins team that was supposed to go 0-16 that won 5 games. To me, that was a coach of the year effort because that team was so talent poor. That provides hope when there is none. What I don't see is I don't see any help for this young quarterback. Now, we differ on Drake May. You have far more belief on Drake May than I do. I made my thoughts on Drake May very clear. Can he prove me wrong? Maybe. And for his sake, hope that he does. However, I don't like it when a young quarterback has little help. He has no help. He has a tackle.
Yeah. Maybe. And that Milano, I don't even know, is a great. I think he should be playing guard, but I think he has to play a tackle just because everything else you have going on. And it's hard. Like again, it's the David Carr incident, and not that they're an expansion team, but like you watch Derek Carr get sacked, 76 times his rookie year, coming from a being a number one overall pick, and obviously coming from where he was at UNC, they weren't the powerhouses that Georgia are or anything like that, but they were a pretty solid team throughout his career there. And to go from that to nothing, right? To go from that to essentially a bare bones situation. If you get beat up too bad, it changes who you are as a player. You've watched it happen. Again, we talked about Carr. You watched up to Sam Darnold, who I don't know if ever would have quite been what he was, but the way that he was beat up with the Jets, and our favorite poster child for this is Daniel Jones, obviously, with the sack rate that he's taken in over his career. He's just never been the same, and the injuries obviously then start to add up too. So. I hope Brissett is kind of the guy. Not that he should be the punching bag, but I don't see where he finishes the season, whether because he's hurt or New England starts the season 1-10, and they're like, hey, we just got to give May some reps, and then they probably lose those two, and you guarantee you're picking first. You get your choice of tackles. Maybe Emory Jones, a guy who feels like a really good fit for them. But just it feels like it's bare bones there. There's not a lot to hang on to. I agree.
Yeah, no. The only thing I'll add before we move to some positivity is this: I remember, what was it, 2018? San Francisco got the number 2 pick for Bosa, and they were expected to be a playoff team because they had Garoppolo. Shanahan finally started getting some pieces, and then Garoppolo went down. And I remember watching those games with Minraj, and he immediately turned to, there's no hope on this team. I'm hoping they lose every game. And I was like, that's not really a great way to look at it as a fan. He's like, of course I would like them to win. But if you're asking me what's the best thing for this team right now, it's to lose every game so we can guarantee we get the best defensive piece possible to help this team win. And I just went, and I don't think you can ever qualify your team as a hopeful team if the best case scenario for New England is this. You don't get Drake May hurt. You play competitively, but you lose as many games as possible to secure the number 1 seed or the number 1 pick, and then you sell it for a king's ransom to build all the help you need for Drake May to make this team a playoff team again. And that just says no hope, man. It says no hope.
And I also don't even think there's hope for that. Based on, again, it's early in the college football season. Really, it started last weekend, but it was a very limited scope. But like you got to play the college season, but like there's no quarterback in this class that's a Caleb Williams or even a Drake May level. Just looking at last year's class, I don't think that people are going to pay top dollar to come up, or even a Bryce Young, who I know you liked Bryce Young, but people weren't quite as high on Bryce Young as say the Trevor Lawrence class, right, and those guys. But I don't think people are going to pay that ransom to come up because I think people are going to come up for tackles and defensive ends, and you need edges, you need offensive tackles, but. You pay the premium for quarterback, and if you're not coming up for a quarterback, you're not going to get that premium. So I even in that hope, not to further dash New England's hopes, but even there, I think you got some problems.
Yeah, it's rough. It is rough. All right, we'll send some more positivity your way.
All right,
who are you hopeful for? Who are you like?
So I'm gonna start out with you gave me a little bit of a segue there. I'm hopeful for the Green Bay Packers. I really am. And this is my This is my Super Bowl representative from the NFC if I had to pick today.
Oh God, Brandon,
Um,
why are you doing this to me, man?
because you talked a little about the back half of the season, and I'm in on Jordan Love. That's really what it is. And I didn't think I would be, but I went back and I was watching some tape and watching some plays. And you watch the first half of that season. You watch the real shifting point for me, at least as you got further in the season, was you watch that Raiders game, right? And he throws that terrible interception at the end of the game to kind of lose that game for them. And you look at LaFleur going to him and be like, he's screaming at him, you got to throw it. You just got to you got to know that you can hit that streak, and he just underthrows and gets picked off. So again, Jordan Love from the rest of that season on, first half of the season, his big time throw percentage, which again is something I referenced earlier, is under 4. It's and we talked about elite quarterback play. I mentioned here, but elite quarterback play in terms of very very high end tends to be about 6%.
Yeah.
His total on the year was 5.6 because he was over 8% in the back half of the season, which would have led the NFL. He was 4th in passing DVOA. And DVOA is basically a Football Outsiders calculation that determines a team's success based on the down and distance of each snap during the season. It makes a calculation on how much more or less successful each team is on average compared to the league average. So he was essentially the 4th best passing player each snap. And he was also 3rd in EPA per pass play. And obviously, this isn't as complicated, but EPA is per pass play is just a metric that measures how well a player performs on each passing play. It does include scrambles per drop back and determines how much value is added or lost compared to the league average snap of the same down or distance. So just phenomenal in both of those categories. He also is on the same level right now. He's only done it again this is over the whole season, not just the back half, but he's only getting sacked on about 5% of his dropbacks, which is Mahomes level stuff. Mahomes is traditionally just unbelievable at that. He had for his career, Mahomes is usually, I think, like 8 or 9%. So for Love to be that efficient is phenomenal, and that tends to be a sticky stack. Sack rate and pressure to sack rate is something that stays year to year to year, even stays college to pros, which is something that people were a little worried about with Daniels coming up early. But Love has done a great job of not just getting the ball out, being effective, being a great passer, but not taking negative plays to put his team in a bad position. Sort of mirroring back to the contract, which I think is something I was originally skeptical of, but as I looked into the details with over the cap, it's actually a pretty great contract as far as the structure is concerned. So we talked about the Tua cap hits. Here are Love's cap hits for the next 4 years. Ready? So think back to, we're talking 50, 59, and 63 for Tua. Here are Love's for the next 4 years: 20.7, 29.7, 36.1, and in 2027 it's 42.1. So he's lower than Tua in 4 years from now than Tua is today. He's less expensive.
How the fuck did they pull that off? Was that all signing bonus? They just said fuck it.
The 70. There's a lot of signing bonus. There's some roster bonuses. The structure of the contract, is pretty brilliant. And it is this contract is written like a team that's gone the Hall of Fame quarterback to Hall of Fame quarterback, right? It's structured in a way that they expect him to play till he's 38. So the contract does have some pretty big back end money, right? And but if he's as good as he's supposed to be, and you have him for 5 more years, you don't care.
Yeah.
And the cap is going to go up. The cap's going to go way up as it does every year. So the fact that he's that cheap, that far out, gives you a chance to, again, unlike the Dolphins, a chance to retain some of your talent that you either draft. So speaking of talent, I think Brian Gutekunst does not get enough credit for how good he is as a drafter, especially in the later rounds. And I'm just gonna read some names. Just let me know if you think these players are pretty good, right? So you have Jair Alexander, MVS, Equanimeous St. Brown, Rashawn Gary, Darnell Savage Jr., Elton Jenkins, Jordan Love, John Running Jr., Jake Hansen, Eric Stokes, Josh Myers, Royce Newman, Quay Walker, Devontae Wyatt, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Zach Tom, Zion Ryan, Kingsley Edebare, Rasheed Walker, Luke Van Ness, Jalen Reed, Tucker Kraft, Colby Wooden, Dontavian Wicks, and Carrington Valentine. Okay? You got all those names?
At least 2/3 of those names are all very successful players on a team.
So every single one of those players is drafted by the Packers. All of them, since being drafted, have played and started at least 17 games for the Packers. So they played a full season since they've been drafted and been productive players for the Packers.
Yeah.
Has been able to contribute and find contributors at every level. Would you hope that Eric Stokes in the first round would be a little bit more productive than say Elton Jenkins in the second? Sure, but you don't really care about that if they're doing everything they need to do. You can see the investment on defense, and I think that is a little bit of PTSD from having to deal with the Shanahan Niners, which is why I think you keep taking these big athletic linebackers who are not necessarily out of mold, but you look at you look at Quay Walker, who's like a big thumper in the who can fill a lane, hit a guard, and like stack and shed. You look at Wyatt, who's got some flexibility to cut a gap. It does feel like they are trying to get over the hump specifically for the Niners, which like I can appreciate because that's the only team that seems to get in their way.
Yeah.
But the hit rate on some of these late picks is unbelievable. The ability to go, and again, this is speaking as a Giants fan who like can't get an offensive lineman right in the top 5. Watching them go, yeah, David Bakhtiari can't play anymore. We're just going to slide this second-round guard out to left tackle and pick this fifth-round, John Runyon Jr. or Zach Tom and just let him play guard. And Jalen Jenkins is basically going to play at an all-pro level at left tackle and just be like, whatever. Is mind-boggling to me. It drives me insane because it's just too good. It's crazy to see them do that. The only real miss, and it's probably tough timing with everything, but AJ Dillon is the only real, I think, issue with his draft. And again, obviously,
I know you have a very negative opinion of AJ Dillon, and that's one of my more homer picks. I can't argue the math. It's far more just I love the guy, so I love the guy.
The thing with AJ Dillon is if you need 3 yards, he'll get you 3 yards. If you need 5 yards, he'll get you 3 yards.
Yeah.
There's nothing else going on here. I think Jacobs, and that's the other thing. Jacobs, I think, is a huge upgrade. I think when Lloyd comes back healthy, if he can fix his ball security issues, gives another explosive element to them. He did just add some of that stuff in college. The coaching, obviously, we can talk about LaFleur a little bit as we're going into like player development is obviously part of the coaching staff. Obviously, the GM's doing a great job getting you some talent, but you put up with Aaron Rodgers after you see him kind of leave like that. He should have won Coach of the Year 3 or 4 times just for putting up with Aaron Rodgers and making him continue to play well. Most wins for the first 3 seasons of an NFL coaching career. His teams have never been outside the top 10 in his career in point differential. So you're always, even if you're losing, you're always competitive. You talk about hope. You feel like you're in every game. Obviously, some of those Niners playoff games have gotten away, but outside of those, you've always been competitive. The offensive design isn't built around one receiver or one scheme that he does the ability to like spread some things around. And something I think it's overlooked. And I'm a big, Derek is a huge, Reed fan. I'm more of a Wicks guy myself, but both of those players are in the top 24 in the NFL in yards per route run. So both of those players are in terms of a metric that is sticky and is pretty accurate in terms of judging who's a pretty good wide receiver. You have 2 receivers in the top 24. And part of that, I think, is scheme design. I think the way that LaFleur is able to, inside the 20, especially get Reed involved, but the way he's able to take shot plays with Wicks, they all have a role. They're kind of built like a basketball team, and each, you have Romeo Dobbs is getting the highest target share on that team, and then you have the explosive from Wicks, and you have the, kind of motions and jet sweeps and crossers from Reed. They do a great job of mixing that up, and I think that's a big credit to LaFleur. Again, I think the only issue I really have or concern I have is he was a little too loyal to Joe Barry for too long, which hurt the team a little bit.
Yes.
And I think Hafley's going to be a good coach. The only concern I have again is he didn't call the defensive plays at BC. So he's coming from a place where, they were a good defense, did a lot of good stuff, but he wasn't the one doing that. So there's an advantage to that where you don't really know what his scheme is going to be. It seems like the signing of McKinley, they're going to play a little single high, like they're going to have him Xavier play a little bit of range and kind of do that, but you really don't know what the scheme is going to be. And that's a good and a bad. But in terms of the foundation, you have a quarterback for the next 4 years who was if continues to play is an MVP candidate at an extremely team-friendly rate with a team that can draft extremely well, which gives you the cap space to retain either homegrown talent or, maybe Michael Parsons becomes available because you just signed CeeDee Lamb and you want to keep Dak. You, even despite having a high-level quarterback, can sign a Micah Parsons, which will change the dynamic of that team, right? So in terms of hope, even if you can't get over the hump this year, which again I think you will, I knock on wood, I'm knocking for you. You have cap space, you have your quarterback, you have great offensive line play and development, you have multiple receivers who can win in different ways, you have players on defense in a new scheme. Again, you spent some money on a single high safety to help Savage play in the box. You've been investing in high quality, high level defensive players. If I was blind to football and just had all the data and I was like I wanted to pick a team that I wanted to have fun watching for the next 1 to 3 years, this would be my pick. And I just think this is how you want to run a franchise. If I want to run an organization, you can be nothing but hopeful for what the Packers are
doing. Everything is super well said. That's part of my logical argument a lot when people ask me my true opinions. I've been getting it a lot because, ironically enough, half the people I met in Alaska the last 3 weeks, by the way, I'm recording this a day after I got back home from Alaska for
Right.
3 weeks, to our viewers. Half the people I met, no joke, were from Wisconsin, and it was just constantly
Really.
Packer talk. There was a two couples, older couples, that we met on the cruise that we took back, and they
Mhm.
rented a cabana for the entire week. And to signify it was their cabana, they hung a Packer flag
Perfect.
over the canvas door, and they're like, "This is our cabana." And I was like,
No,
so every time I
no.
walked by, I was like, "What's
Really felt like
up?"
home.
I was like, "What's up, yo?" And like I just
Yeah.
kept running into Packer people. It was
Johnny.
crazy. It's what we do. It's what we do, man.
Exactly.
I think what's the most insane thing about every logical piece that you said, and why it's truly reasonable to say there's great hope in Green Bay right now, is that's not even what keeps me hopeful about this team besides obvious things. I look at a receiving core that, as you said, no one player is designed to be the fixture, and yet in many games, if healthy, and it looks like he's addressed his health pretty well this season or this offseason, Christian Watson is the most dangerous if he is healthy. That's a big if, and there's a reason why in our expansion draft I put him up as an expansion player, because I was just like, if you're forcing me money wise to say who has to go, and I'm not getting health, I would say of the six guys on that team, Watson would probably be the one I'd have to go with, monetarily speaking. But you have a six deep receiver core that Bo Melton could be a lot of teams' three, Malik Heath could be a lot of teams' three, and they're 5 and 6 on this team. That's insane. And the craziest part is this: they're only carrying six receivers, and they let two or three guys go that could also be another team's four. They're just it's like they're the new Pittsburgh Steelers, where just like receivers are just falling out of their ass nonstop. Um, Another thing is their tight end group is phenomenal. They have a young tight end group that's making an impact as young players because they can be incredible contributors in the run game. That's the thing that really brings me hope. There is getting some more analysis on the Packers. I didn't know this from a scheme fit. Apparently there's a lot of times where I knew they were using the tight ends and motions as blockers a lot, but I didn't know how specific and unique it was, where they would just essentially, they call it almost an escort blocker, and they'd just be like, we're going to go straight to that gap that you are going through, and we're just going to beat the shit out of whoever's first to make sure you get at least four. And that was something that I also just found really, really fascinating, because they're 3 or 4 deep at the tight end position in terms of contributors. I don't think they have a top 5 tight end, but they have real contributors at that position as well. And I look at the continuity of this team. This is still the youngest team in the NFL. By the way, are you muted on purpose? Yeah? Okay. So we'll figure that out in a second, but I'll just keep talking. But this is a team with extreme continuity everywhere. This is also a team that understood its weaknesses and addressed them immediately. Here, hold. Yeah, I mean, Green Bay. What's insane about Green Bay to me, and why beyond the homer pick,
Right.
which I really didn't think you were going to lead with Green Bay. I thought you might throw it in there for me, but I didn't think you were going to lead with Green Bay from the hopeful
You
categories.
gave me the feed in, so I had to, with the love talk earlier, so I was like, I got to run. And I felt, the biggest thing was the contract talks, and I think it's a good comp between Tua and, Dolphins not doing it right, Green Bay doing it, correctly. So I couldn't help myself.
Shocking. A organization that's been stable for 30 years did smart
Yeah.
things. Who would have thought? Who would have fucking thought? You know.
Yeah.
But to add to yours, it's not necessarily contrarian to what makes me hopeful with you, but also makes me hopeful is I just look at other positions as well of depth that this team has. I think they have a phenomenal tight end group that are all major contributors. Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave are both phenomenal blockers that are also active contributors in the pass game. And they just had Tyler Davis, I believe, is the one they put on the IR for the year. Also, a very, like, They put him down, and then they have Ben Sims as their third tight end, and he's still a very good blocking tight end that can occasionally get in the passing game. So they understand their scheme really well. They have a continuity on the offensive line. Even when they lost two pieces, they were just like, all right, well, we still have Acton Jenkins, we still have Zach Tom. We understand where we're going, and that piece really helps me from a confidence standpoint in making sure this team's hopeful. Another thing I always look for in teams that are hopeful. We already talked about one, it's continuity.
Right.
They have that in spades. Two is, it is so easy when you are a successful team to not look inward and try to improve that much. I look at it, the best example is that 2018 Vikings team. They went all the way with Case Keenum and lost it in the end, and they just said, well, if we just get Kirk Cousins and change nothing,
right,
we'll win the Super Bowl. Right. And then that's put Minnesota on the current course that it's in now. It's kind of what the Falcons did, honestly, with Kirk Cousins again. Like, well, if we just get Kirk Cousins, we'll be in the playoffs every year. It'll be fine. And it's ironic.
Desmond Ritter was disastrous. I mean, he didn't even make the Cardinals roster, and
right,
more defensive pieces. But you're 100%. I don't want to cut you off, but I think it's just such a good segue to you watch Dan Campbell talk after that Lions loss to the Niners in the playoffs. That we may never get back here again. This might have been it, and I'm so proud of you guys and all this stuff. But that's recognition of a player who's played so long in the league, who was a phenomenal assistant coach with the Saints, who obviously saw them win one but then never get back. And it is just that recognition in terms of, again, hope of you're not being negative, you're being realistic and being like, if you really want this, if you really want to get back, it is going to take everything we just did and 25, 30 more %, which may have been you thought was your everything.
Right.
So,
and that's what I love is they have made even moves that I was like, oh, I don't know about. They have been aggressive in improvement. Yeah. They just said, hey, we didn't really have a factor at safety last year. We just had guys. Why don't we just go get one of the best safeties in the league?
Thanks for that.
Sorry, bud.
No, it's okay.
To be fair, I talked my wife out of kicking you in the balls because that card shop that I went to in Alaska.
Yeah.
The card shop I went to on vacation also had a bunch of sports stuff. She's like, I think you just sent one sarcastic text or something. And she's like, oh, should I get him a Saquon Barkley card? And I was like, don't be an asshole. Nice. Don't kick him while he's down.
Twist the knife. Thanks, Abs. Good stuff.
See, I wouldn't do that, though. I wouldn't let her do that. But I just look at, this is a team that understood we're good. We want to be great.
Yeah.
And to be great, you have to be aggressive in doing what you want to do. If you think your running game could be more successful with Josh Jacobs and you go get him, you do it. I still think Aaron Jones is someone who I think as of right now, I think Aaron Jones is still a better fit for that team.
Sure.
But I haven't seen Josh Jacobs play in this offense. So maybe I'm wrong. I'm hopeful I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong on that one. But Xavier McKinney is a huge upgrade. I look at their drafting. They just said, hey, we have one great tackle and a good offensive line, but we want to get ready for anything. We're going to go get a tackle who could probably swing into guard. Right. And they're already trying him at the guard position a lot. And they went and got two bigger linebackers that they just said, our linebacking core was a problem last year. Let's just solve it, and let's use high-quality draft picks to go get the top linebackers in this draft class, especially with Edgerrin Cooper. And they just are addressing need after need aggressively to where you talked about the depth at the receiver position a little bit. To have a Malik Heath and Bo Melton as your 5 and 6 on this team, and they could be a lot of teams 3, is insane. Right. And right,
local hero.
Yeah, and on top of that, you didn't even speak about the theoretical most dangerous receiver in that room. If he's healthy. Now, it looks like he's addressed his health, but every offseason when someone's healthy, you're like, he's healthy. See, he addressed his health. So I'm not going to say, oh, Christian Watson's never going to have a hamstring issue for the rest of his life. That's the dumbest thing I could ever say in this moment.
Right.
But that is theoretically the most dangerous player that they have on their offense to help Jordan Love and this team succeed even further if he can be a successful contributor on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's true.
They let 3 guys that could be good contributors on other teams as their 3 or 4 they let him go because they were just so stacked at the receiver position. And
Right.
they brought one back on their practice squad. I look at their practice squad guys, even their practice squad guys. It's literally, I just got the notification from
Nice.
the
Nice.
Packer
Real
app,
time reporting.
but it's they released Greg Joseph, so they clearly are not happy with their kicking position, and they knew it was a problem. They just said we're gonna change it. We're gonna
Right.
figure it out. And even though Anders Carlson looked like Carlson got better in training camp, they still said it's not worth it. We can't do this. But even their practice squad guys, Julian Hicks made a lot of plays in the preseason to try to earn himself a play.
Yeah.
He's a guy who could come in and if one of those guys gets hurt and just maybe be a small contributor and do something for you. I think Kalen King can still be possibly a developmental pick at the corner position.
Yeah.
You know,
Great college player.
exactly. He was a great college player, and he just kind of fell off the map.
Yeah.
And I love this, as ironically, we've been getting a lot of guys to talk about from our expansion draft over the last couple of weeks, but I love the trade for Malik Willis.
Yeah.
Do we have just a fondness for the guy because he's fun to watch?
Yes.
Yes, we do. I don't think he's a world beater, but what I love about it is they look at their backup quarterback position and they just go, okay, we gave Clifford a chance, wasn't that good. We gave Pratt a chance, he was all over the place this preseason.
Yeah.
Let's go get a guy that we at least have an idea that he could probably play, not similar quality, but in a similar vein to Jordan. If something happens, could he at least be athletic, run around, and maybe find a guy during a game if Jordan goes down?
Yeah.
Obviously, if Jordan goes down, Malik Heath is not going to win this team a Super Bowl. That's not what I am asserting.
Right. Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
love the aggressiveness where they just go, that's a problem, we're getting rid of it, and we're fixing it. Or we're going to attempt to fix it with the best pieces that we have available to us.
Right.
And
Right.
that's what you want in your team. That's what's made the Niners phenomenal over the past 5-6 years. Is they look at a problem, they just go, nope, we're fixing that. Not going to be
They don't.
not going to be doing this anymore.
They don't get. They don't have that sunk cost fallacy, and as much as it pains me, it's what makes Philadelphia as good as they are.
Yes.
It's taking Jalen Hurts when you had MVP runner-up Carson Wentz. It's drafting Cam Jurgens when you have 3 years from to sit behind Jason Kelsey. It's drafting Malaga when you know he's a rugby player but he can learn from Lane Johnson. It's those, and then when you do miss, he has enough stability, and I think the Packers have this too. But Rose has enough stability that when you do miss horribly, right? You think Arcega-Whiteside over AJ Brown, who you end up with AJ Brown eventually, but you don't get. Laurie trusts him enough that, like, hey, we're it's okay. Like, you can continue to take these swings and, like you said, be aggressive in your problem solving areas because you have the confidence of the owner, and you're not the number one job of the GM is not to win. The number one job is to keep the job, right?
Yeah.
So, like, you can't miss too badly for the most part. And I'll Ben Solak, if anybody listens, you got to follow him. He's the best follower on Twitter. He's brilliant. That's one of his favorite quotes. So I want to give him credit for that one. But number one job is keep the job. So Howie doesn't have to worry about that. Green Bay doesn't have to worry about that. So that security it goes a big way to being able to be aggressive inside versus the Joe Shanes of the world who has to sign Daniel Jones to a $160 million deal and then loses Saquon and all that other stuff. So it's tough. It's a tough road when ownership is not all the way behind you in that GM position to do the things you're talking about. So I think that's why an underlooked aspect of this is the owner GM relationship.
Yeah, no, it's impressive to see what's happening in those organizations, and since we're talking specifically about the Packers, it is insane how that team is still run like 1995-96 Ron Wolf, where they just said, nope,
Yeah.
we're going to pay our scouts to do their job, we're going to listen to our scouts,
Right.
we're going to have a lot of opinions in the room, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's this guy's choice, and we're just going to make a good choice. And even if Goody flames out, even if this season goes terribly wrong, you cannot say Brian Gutekunst is a bad GM. He's already proven he's a good GM already.
Awesome.
So
yeah,
and so it's just, I mean, you're fortunate if you're a Packer fan to have that stability, like we talked about. Now, to show that I am an unbiased contributor, it hurts my feelings because it scares me. A team I am hopeful for is the Chicago Bears.
Okay.
Obviously, just coming off a segment talking about my favorite team that makes me very happy, to have their most historic rival be on the hope train and it's real for once. I'm like, fuck. Like,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
they were hopeful and they got the good old biscuit, I was just like, it's
Yeah.
not a problem. Or when they got Justin Fields, I was like, not a problem. When
Right.
they grabbed Caleb Williams, I'm like, fuck. Like,
Yeah.
because they were looking good and competitive last year, even with Justin Fields, to
Yeah.
where their defense was holding them. Montez Sweat was a huge pickup for them because he brought a lot of
Yeah.
stability in that pass rush. And now you have a contributor on the offensive side of the ball where, as of right now, it looks like he is truly an elevator.
Yeah.
So this is the classic example of you have hope because you have something new specifically at the quarterback position.
Yeah.
I don't know if I necessarily could say I have that because Eberflus is their coach, but Eberflus has shown when he is in charge of his defense can play well.
Yes.
And then to at least now have on the offensive side of the ball a true difference maker at the quarterback position, and I think the first time in my lifetime, it's only because it's how bad their wide receiver room has been in the past. It's not because necessarily the quality of the wide receiver room now. You could argue this is a top 3, if not the best wide receiver room the Chicago Bears have ever had. That's an insane statement to say,
Yeah.
but it's actual
Yeah.
possibility.
Yeah. I couldn't, and I was gonna expand on that a little bit and say, we talked about the best 1-2 punch. This might be the best 1-2-3. I mean, I don't believe, Philly has just traded for Doxson, he has that never more than 500 yards in a season. I'm not worried about him, but
Right.
the Roma Dunze was some people's number one receiver. He led the NFL led the college football in deep catches last year. He's an explosive. Was tracking down. I think he's the reason, if I'm honest, in watching the film, and not that I'm an expert at any level, but if you watch the film, the adjustments to the deep ball that Rome is able to make made Michael Penix a lot better than he was, in my opinion. You add that with Keenan Allen, who is just a machine. I mean, you want to talk about reliability from the slot and comfort and a security blanket. And then you have DJ Moore. DJ Moore, and I'm going to get to this. I'm going to get to some of this a little bit later. DJ Moore was on pace for 1,500 yards with Justin Fields. You know how insane that is? With Justin Fields, he was on pace for 1,500 receiving yards with Justin Fields as a starter. The guy and he's still so young. I think he's 25, maybe 26 this year, somewhere in that neighborhood. He's a burner. He, catches the ball reliably, can make a miss in space. I don't know
He's
that
a
there's
tough
a better.
sumbitch too. They have 3 tough sumbitches too. That's the other
Yeah.
thing I don't like.
Yep.
DJ Moore,
And
Keenan Allen, and Roma Dunze are all tough as
they're
motherfuckers.
dudes. Yeah. And I don't love Cole Kmet. I think they overpaid him, but as a option number 4, all about it. And Swift is Swift. Another guy, and this is just me. I'm going back to, I'm a Khalil Herbert believer, man. I think he's going to be the starter in that offense by week 6 without injury. Now them getting hurt. Khalil Herbert's the guy. Khalil Herbert should have been the guy a while ago. But just productive, great in the blitz pickup, reliable hands. He's going to be somebody that Caleb can rely on. And again, you watch that preseason, some of the preseason games where Caleb's rolling right and just like that flick of the wrist and that ball goes 60 yards and just explodes out of his hand.
Yep.
The Bears never had anything like that.
No.
Even Fields didn't have that kind of arm or touch or accuracy or anything to that nature. And it is. I mean, this has a chance to be the best Bears offense ever. And I know that seems insane to say.
It's mostly because their offense has never been that good.
It's been Gale Sayers and Walter Payton, and that's been their entire. Those are the 2 best offenses. They were arguably the best backs of their era, and are both first ballot Hall of Famers and obviously phenomenal talents. But
I mean, the best offense they've had in my lifetime was a kick returner. So
yeah. The Cutler Marshall connection for a little bit was all right, but again, it was Devin Hester's rookie year was phenomenal. I don't want to get sidetracked now because I can take on a whole hour just on Devin, but
I could too. I love Devin.
Yeah, the offense. This is going to be a lot of. Again, we're talking about hope. This is a chance to be. There's a great little clip. I think it's I think it was preseason week 2. There's a girl who's in the front row behind the Bears bench, and she's got a Caleb Williams jersey on, and he goes up and he hugs her and goes back down, and she's bawling. She's like an 10, 11-year-old girl, and it's just if that's not hope, what is?
It's something.
It was a very warm moment.
It's something in which I don't even have to be careful because I'm just candid and I'm honest. As you know, I've said this in other shows as well. We spent 2 years in Chicago. And then
Right.
as I was leaving Chicago, and then really after I left Chicago, I fell in love with that city. And then every time I came back to it, I was like, God damn, this city's actually pretty rad. I
Mhm.
really do love this place. And one thing I can tell you about Chicago, regardless of whether I like the team that they prefer or not, that team in terms of that city is a hotbed for sports. You just need to give them a reason to believe, and that's how bad the Bears have been. That's a city that wants to invest, that
Right.
wants to go in, and has been beaten down for so long that they have to grasp at straws like Jay Cutler or Rex Grossman, where they're just like Brian Urlacher, who Brian
Hall of
Urlacher
Fame
is a Hall of Fame
player.
player. He's a Hall of Fame player. I don't think he should have been first ballot. That's just me, whatever. But bias might be in there too. I admit that.
Sure.
But I don't think that the very good solid middle linebacker should be the only hope for your team for 30 years.
Sure.
And,
Sure.
or your kick returner is the most exciting part of your team.
Right.
Now granted, Devin Hester is very special. He's been
Yeah.
special to me since I first saw him.
Peanut Tillman was fun.
Yeah, and Pian Tillman was
Peanut fun.
great. And he revolutionized the game. Honestly, Charles Tillman in some ways has an argument to make the Hall of Fame just because of how often he changed the game from the terms of the
Sure.
punch. Um, but that city is dying for hope, and they finally have it. That's the definition of why you need to be hopeful. You finally started to
Sure.
get the pieces where you went, well, maybe we could be good. And then you got the guy to helm the whole thing to go, we got it. This feels to me, which is why it's so frightening. The only thing that dampens my hopes for them specifically is it's not Andy Reid. Is this feels like an alternate universe 2017 Mahomes, where
Mm.
people at that practice were going, "This kid's good.
Different.
Like this kid's just different." And when you watch Caleb, I mean, shit, the first fucking video of practice this year, it looks different with Caleb.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
just like, oh god, like,
Yeah.
and the way that offense, because then let's just say they can get a touchdown more a game, which that might say a lot of people say that might be a lot, but when you're only scoring 10 to 13 points to be 20 isn't that much of a stretch. Or maybe Caleb was just athletic enough that he can turn those 13s into 16s and 19s. And with a
Sure.
defense that's good, that can win you a lot of games. That could have won them a lot of games last year. And it's just it's a team that's finally hit something.
Yeah.
As a biased Packer fan, the only thing I'm like, come on, Bears, let's screw this up, buddy. Let's
Somehow
let Caleb be
get to
fun
this,
for
right?
7 years and let him go somewhere else and win a title.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
but there's true hope there, man. And this is a team that I truly do believe the Bears could make a playoff push this year. I think they're that good.
Yeah. Yeah, and Jalen, just on the defense, Jalen Johnson, I think, is an unbelievably underrated corner. I mean, I only got paid this year, but that guy is a full lockdown physical specimen. And he's sort of the cornerstone you have now with Roquan gone. But I think that there are some really strong pieces for that Bears team. And you made a really good mention. I want to add, and I think especially, I think Caleb Williams himself is the hope, right? I mean, like everything else they've done is awesome. Trading down, getting all those extra picks from Carolina, doing some good stuff with that, getting Rome with that pick. There's a lot of hope. There's a lot of hope in a city, right? That I think that's probably their Michael Jordan tax, if I'm honest. Like you get to have Michael Jordan for that time, like you gotta suffer a little bit.
Yeah.
But certainly a phenomenal pick in terms of the narrative and the energy of the city for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that I love paying attention to the other stuff. It's something that Derek brought up in our expansion draft that we didn't get to cover as much is the business side of it.
Right.
Hey, it's just a coincidence that the day before they were going to pick Caleb Williams, magically they had a plan for a downtown stadium and a downtown entertainment district for the Bears.
Right.
Just magically they changed their tune from the past 5 years to magically we're going to give this city hope again. You're like,
just a good point.
Wonder why that is. You're like, oh yeah, because they have the guy. And it's frightening for other teams in the NFC North. It's certainly what's even more frightening, I think, even more than a Packer fan, it's got to be frightening for a Detroit fan. You finally are on top. You're finally like, no, we could do this. And then two teams that you finally thought you're going to get a break from are both like, we're here, fuck you. And you're like, damn it.
Yeah. And I am going to jump on that because my next team that I am out on is the Detroit Lions. And that was such a good transition. So again, I wanted to jump on that because, again, professional podcasting. Again, this is not me saying they're going to be a bad team, but I've seen people projecting them as the Super Bowl representative out of the NFC. And I think they can win a wild card game. Again, we talked about matchup-wise with the Dolphins, right? I think it depends who you get. This is a team that you have a blueprint how to beat, and it starts with Jared Goff. Jared Goff, 3.1% big-time throw percentage. Third worst in the league behind I'm sorry, not third worst in the league. Right behind Daniel Jones. So worse than Daniel Jones from last year. He is the third lowest passing grade in the NFL when he's pressured, behind Tua and Daniel Jones. The Lions that was with the Lions having the third highest receiver grade. They were ninth in pass blocking and second in run blocking. So obviously, like Ben Johnson, the offensive line and the skill positions are carrying this offense in a similar light to what's happening with Tua, right? I mean, and Ben Johnson, I would have loved to see, the ineptitude of the Commanders to not get him signed is its own thing. But this team without Ben Johnson, I think, is maybe a 6-win team. And I say that sincerely. But they have him, so that's a little bit different.
Wow.
Jared Goff on EPA per play, when he throws to his first read, so plays designed to go Amon-Ra on an out. And it's his first read, he's the second best quarterback in EPA per play. On throws after that, he's 23rd. And on throws where he is, on passes where he's seeing at least 6 rushers, he's the worst quarterback in the NFL with at least 300 attempts. This is something Brian Flores has known his entire life. Anytime they play a Brian Flores defense, the Lions are terrible. Jared Goff is terrible. It's something that the Niners figured out, I guess, remembered maybe in the second half of that game when Jared Goff fell apart. And the biggest play in that game when he's trying to pick up that fourth down, they blitz him. He basically throws the ball away on fourth down. He is a terrible, terrible quarterback under pressure. It doesn't even have to be, Flores likes to go cover 0 against them. But you can go, again, the math tells you go six rushers. He's the worst quarterback in the NFL. And statistically speaking. The contract, which we've kind of talked about a little bit, the first 2 years of it aren't terrible. He's 27.2 against the cap this year, 32.6 next year, $70 million in 2026. $70 million. And that's with, you just signed Sewell, you just signed Decker, and you just signed St. Brown. So those contracts also continue to go up. So somebody's got to go. Somebody's got to get restructured. And the core of this team has 2 years. There's a 2-year window here where I think they're going to be competitive and be, this kind of challenger, I would say, to the Niners, to the Packers of the world, to the Eagles, unfortunately. But with Jared Goff, especially at that 2026 cap number, it's unsustainable. And again, when you have a blueprint to beat a player, especially in the playoffs, right? Like it's a death sentence. It's the reason the Eagles got knocked out in the first round. When you need to just blitz Jalen Hurts, it's the reain. Again, second half of that Niners game, you send some pressure, and he just cannot process it and handle it. You know what I mean? And I know we harp on this a lot. By we, I mean media, but McVay traded away Goff because he couldn't win with him, and he gave the Lions an extra first to take him. And yeah, it's the contract and all that kind of stuff, but you can't pay a quarterback top 3 money with such a key weakness and just having no answers to it. At this point, his career is not going to change, right? The Tiger's not going to change his stripes. So to have someone that was so susceptible to pressure consistently year to year is a problem the Lions, I don't think, are going to have an answer for, especially as that number continues to balloon. And then you have issues with defense, right? You gave up the second most first downs by penalties last year. So you're undisciplined, you're grabbing, you're holding, you're committing pass interference. You had the third lowest grade in the NFL for team coverage. This is all from PFF, by the way, and as well as in net yards gained per pass attempt. You're the 5th worst in defensive points added, which is essentially, how ineffective was your defense in given plays where you should have made a tackle but you missed it, things like that. They were 6th worst in yards per offensive play, which is basically just rushing yards plus pass yards divided by pass attempts, rush attempts, and time sacked, and as well as touchdowns allowed, which is just, again, you're horrific, just pretty awful across the board on defense. Um, which again, it's not, this is news to Lions fans, but the one thing that people hang their hand on there is that defensive line. Aiden Hutchinson accounts for 25% of the team's sacks over the last 2 years and 33% of their pressures. So if you take Aiden Hutchinson out of that game, which, or any of these games where, again, he's young, he's still healthy, he's a good player. I'm not, tearing out Aiden Hutchinson, but you're not getting a lot of production anywhere else on that line. And again, you're not going to be able to sustain a quarter of your team's sacks and 33% of their pressures, all the time. And then you continue to overdraft early. Brad Holmes has obviously done some. Jameson Williams, I think, has been a little bit of a miss. He treated, but Penny Sewell, Malcolm Rodriguez late, James Houston late, Aleem McNeil, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Brian Branch, Sam Laporta, all really good players. But then to take, Jack Campbell and to take Jahmyr Gibbs so early in those drafts, and just a lack of care for positional value, is eventually going to catch up to you, right? And it did a little bit, I think, this year in terms of being forced to take two corners back to back in the draft in Arvin Rakeshaw. And rookie corners historically struggle. And again, this defense is already really, really bad. And one of my favorites is I got this from Stats and Schemes from Summer Sports. In a standard season where a corner ranks in the top 10 in yards per coverage snap allowed, which is essentially you're in coverage with a receiver on a specific play, how often are you giving up X amount of yards or Y amount of yards? For a player that ranks in the top 10 in any given season N, the following year, their average rank is 46. So coverage grades and corner play is very, very inconsistent year to year to year.
Yes.
So not only are you bringing in rookies, you're bringing in inconsistent players at a position that you don't think you necessarily have an answer to. So, also should give a shout out to how good, Sauce Gardner and Patrick Surtain II have really been since coming into the league, but that's a whole other can of worms.
Jalen Johnson again?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so in that same metric, for example, again, where you're having a variability of about 46, Sauce Gardner was first and second over the last 2 years in that metric. So Sauce Gardner has just been, I don't know what I'm talking about, but just again, looking at that stat, I thought that really stood out to me. And again, if Sean McVay with NFL MVP Todd Gurley can't keep Jared Goff and allow him to win a Super Bowl, despite how good that offensive line is, despite how good Gibbs is, despite how good Montgomery is, you're always going to have these issues with Jared Goff, and especially if you don't have a defense. You don't have Aaron Donald on this team, right? You don't have Aaron Donald that can take over a game for you and get a strip sack or end the drives on his own. And I think without the defensive cornerstone and with that consistently well-known weakness for Goff, plus the rising cap numbers of all of their players, this just isn't a team for me that I think is going to be in the championship round of the NFL playoffs. Again, not saying they're going to make it, but just not the – I've seen people pick them as a Super Bowl pick, and I just don't think they have the quarterback to get it done. Or the defense.
Yeah, I don't fully agree that there's no hope here. I think they're a contender. When I did my tier list, when I did a tier list yesterday when I was really just trying to prepare.
Right.
And they were that fringe team for me where I was like, I can see them winning a Super Bowl. But there's that bit of doubt. And that might be some historical bias as well. But when I look, I'm like, I can see San Francisco winning the Super Bowl this year. I can see Green Bay winning the Super Bowl this year. I can see Kansas City winning the Super Bowl this year. I can see Baltimore winning the Super Bowl this year. Those are the four that I'm like, if you're a fan and you believe they can win, you are statistically proven right that you at least should have that opinion that you could, right? There's always mystery teams that come out of nowhere and everything else, and Detroit was that team that I was like, I'm going to put them here for now, but I'm not entirely sure. It's that defense, man, and like you said, they do some unconventional draft moves that don't inherently make sense to me or many people. And I think, again, their later round drafts where they kind of go rogue, they work. But when they go those top end picks outside of Aiden Hutchinson, which was like Vegas level arrow sign with lights, pick me, please. I am tailor made for you.
Right.
They haven't had a real big time first round pick that's been a true difference maker yet. I know a lot of people are high on Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm not necessarily low on Jahmyr Gibbs, but I'm not as high as some people are. I think there's just a lot of Kool-Aid right now. And so if I had to
I
make
would
the
push back
argument of
on.
no hope, I would say
Yeah, yeah,
it seems a little. It seems like they're the Kool-Aid team right now.
yeah. I would push back that Penny Sewell is not a top impact player. I mean, he's I think he's the second best left
Oh,
tackle in the league, and outside of that, and Aiden Hutchinson. But again,
my apologies. I forgot Penny Sewell was part of their draft class. I thought
yeah,
Penny got the last draft class of the bad
no,
group,
no, no,
and
no.
then
He was all good. That would be the only one. But again, it eventually catches up with you, right? And I think, not again looking at tiers, I think the Niners, are running into this a little bit, where like you're drafting, you draft high poorly, again excluding those guys we talked about, and you hit on a few late guys that can help you sort of stabilize the team and stabilize the roster, which is great. You need those things as well, but you then eventually have to pay those guys, right? Because they haven't been paid for the rookie deals. They want a little more money. Because they haven't had the opportunity to be a high pick and get some of that slotted guaranteed money. Um, and then maybe you're unwilling to retain them, right? The Ayuk situation, you're already paying. I think I'm speaking to the Niners here, but you have the Ayuk situation that's still unresolved. You have the Trent Williams situation that's unresolved. You've already paid Christian McCaffrey. You have this Brock Purdy contract on the horizon. So even when you do hit on some of these late ones, if you're not able to hit consistently at other places and do it at a high level, you end up like the Giants, and that's you know tough for me to say. Or you end up like even a little bit New England, like New England's Bill Belichick, the GM, was not been good the last few years. You
no,
end up like Washington in its old ownership. So not that they're that level of dysfunctional or anything like that, but I think eventually like Campbell is so bad, man. Like to have him be that pick, and Gibbs is great. Gibbs is fun. He's awesome. David Montgomery can do 90% of what he can do. And I just don't know that guy was the difference maker for you. Obviously, he wasn't going to get over the hump against the Niners. Jameson Williams has had what? He's averaging 29 yards per game in his career. That's as a trade up to a top 12 pick. Like that's
yeah,
really what I'm looking for. So I think eventually these things catch up with you. Um, and I'm just a little concerned if Brad Holmes continues down this path of positional value doesn't exist. Um, it's a problem. And
yeah,
there are exceptions. Like I watching Bijan play this year, I can understand taking him in the first round, not at 8, but I can understand he moves differently than everybody else in the field, right? He moves like Tyreek Hill moves in terms of like not the same speed, but
yeah,
you watch him for his weight, size, body composition, and he's moving at a different speed than NFL players. And it's like, oh, this guy is special, right?
yeah,
Those guys you can spend a premium for, right? I mean, that's you don't want to take him at 8, but like if he went at 17, 18, I'd be okay with that. I think
yeah.
that's okay for a running back. But to have the trade happen and take him at 12 with Jahmyr Gibbs, again, this is not a shot at Jahmyr Gibbs. He's a great player. He's fun. He's explosive, catches the ball well, but just is not where you want to be. I think in terms of positional value. So
Yeah.
again, the hope for me, and I think maybe you're such a masterful storyteller, and you do such a good job of kind of internalizing and then vocalizing the energy or the aura, for lack of a better phrasing, of a city where I think I am a little more analytical in terms of just the way that I went about this exercise, just a little more analytical on the numbers, and not just right now, how are they feeling? How are they going to feel 2-3 years? How are they going to feel 4 or 5 years from
Yeah.
now? And how are they set up? So again, like 100% agree. I think the Kool-Aid is probably the right analogy there. But I'm also interested to see, again, year 2, year 3, 4 from here, are they still this level of competitor?
Yeah, I think if I have to make the argument towards no hope, it just feels a lot like they're the Kool-Aid team that everybody's finally. I have rarely in my life met anyone who is in even a remote football circle that at least kind of knows the game, even as a remote fan, that doesn't have a soft spot for the Lions because of their history of how bad they've been. And
Right.
there
100%.
is, I guess the best analogy I can say right now is the Lions to me right now. I still think they're good. I could see them winning a Super Bowl. I don't think they're a favorite, but I could see it happening if it runs their way, right? But to me right now it feels like the way they're being treated by the mass football audience or
Yeah.
community, it feels kind of 2020, like pre-2020 Russell Wilson, where for years people
Mhm.
didn't give Russell Wilson the credit for being a better player than he was, And then magically
Right.
it went into overdrive where they went, no, Russell's a top 5 quarterback. And then you had to go,
Right.
okay, let's calm down.
Yeah.
He's a
Yeah.
top 10, 12-ish guy. And he played one top 5 season where he just kind of balled out.
Yeah.
But now we're going way too far in what we're giving them. And I certainly am not hoping against them, even as a division rival. I'm not saying, like, I just hope Detroit's awful because I hate Detroit. That's not what I'm looking for, but it just kind of gives that vibe to me right now. And how many times have we seen a championship team loser do exactly what Dan Campbell said, where it's just we're never coming back, and that's just what they don't have the stability like a San Francisco or Green Bay or Philly or Kansas City or Baltimore to keep coming back and make you believe you're going to get there. So that would be my only argument choice on that.
And I know we want to move on, but my question, I guess, and this is not the same and not exactly on topic, but I think it's a good comparison. When was the last Super Championship team that was led by a running game that didn't also have an elite defense on that same team? Can you name one?
No.
'Cause I can't. I mean, the ones that I go to off the top of my head are like the 06 Steelers, where like Ben Roethlisberger goes 9 for 29 with 2 picks and is the worst passer rating in a Super Bowl ever for a winning team. But Willie Parker goes for 120 and Bettis goes for a pair of touchdowns, and but they also have the pick 6 in that game. They the Steelers were a top 3 defense that year. And then I go back to like the Giants, where like in 9 you had Banks, Taylor, George Martin, for reasons they were a top 3 defense, but like Otis Anderson just carried the ball 40 times because they made sure the
70
Bills
billion times.
Yeah, literally held the ball for 41 minutes of game time. Like literally just did not give them the ball. But again, you couldn't do that. I mean, and that was Taylor was still Taylor back then, and I mean maybe the '85 Bears, but again it's the '85 Bears. Like that's the defense still.
And they had arguably the best running back in NFL history.
Right, and like that's sort of my point. Maybe it's Jim Brown. Maybe Jim Brown's the answer.
Yeah.
But like I don't have like a modern day NFL or even like a 70s or 80s equivalent of elite running. Like Eric Dickerson would be another great best running back of his era. I would argue. As you get past the Walter Payton era and the later part of his career, and you watch especially early Eric Dickerson, where it's just he had more rush attempts than the quarterback had pass attempts. Great offensive line, did all that stuff, and just still couldn't get over the hump. Lost to the '86 Giants, lost to the '85 Bears. So, in a world where it's built even more for passing and more is on the quarterback's plate, especially if you do not have that top 5 defense, which the Lions are a bottom 5 defense, I don't see a world for. And again, the hope right now, at least in my opinion, from what you're saying, is like the hope is a Super Bowl, and I just don't think that's a realistic expectation with Jared Goff, a quarterback, and this defense.
I think that's the best way to cap it. I'm resisting now the urge to stay within division and do the whole division. Because I think all hope for Minnesota was just dashed 2 weeks ago when McCarthy went out. Because even if you weren't a McCarthy fan, you could at least said, hey, they know they're rebuilding and they're going to let the kid sit and figure it out. And hey, at least he has Justin Jefferson. I wanted to get that one in just because it would be remiss of me as a professional to not say, hey, we've done 3 division teams. Let's just finish the division, honestly, like you have. Because Minnesota is on my no-hope list because of that.
Sure. You're playing Sam Darnold, it's an auto loss.
Seeing ghosts. You're seeing ghosts, and certainly your record's going to be seeing ghosts by Halloween. So that's how it goes.
Well said. Well done. Again, we talked about the fact that in the analytics community there's a legitimate thing called the Mahomes-Darnold axis, which is like if you're looking to check a statistic and Mahomes is at one end and Darnold's at the other, there's a pretty good chance it's a good statistic. Tell me about Sam Darnold, and that's like a generally accepted thing in the analytics community.
I was so glad when you sent that my way. It was worthwhile for my downloaded text with barely any service where I was at that time. I was like, yep, I need that one. But I'm going to go... I got 2 teams I'm really divided on. Actually, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to go big here. I'm going to go Dallas Cowboys. There's no hope for you.
Oh, yes. I love it. Good stuff.
So I was trying to avoid it because I didn't want to sound like these classic Cowboy haters.
Mm-hmm.
There is one category of no hope for me
Mm-hmm.
that history has shown is very worthwhile, and yet no one wants to talk about it. It's
Okay.
called the bad juju vibes. If you just got bad juju vibes,
Yeah. Yep.
it's not good. Here's my issue.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I'm going to pair it back to another argument for why we were hopeful for Green Bay, is this. In what world has Dallas improved?
Right.
They haven't. If anything, they've only lost. That's all they've done. And I'm not saying Deron Bland is a great player, but they just lost Deron Bland for a
Right.
giant chunk. So
Yep.
they lost a starter on their defense that already, outside of Micah Parsons, has issues. Now, a lot of people could argue, oh, no, Trayvon Diggs is coming back. I think Trayvon Diggs is far more of a liability than a plus. That's my personal
For
opinion.
sure. And we just talked about how volatile cornerback play is.
Yeah, and frankly, I can't stand when he led the league in interceptions, and everyone's like, "Oh, defensive player of the year," and I was like,
Yeah.
"Did you watch the rest of the game when he got burned
Yeah.
and he was a complete liability?"
He led the league in yards allowed that year too, and in
Yeah.
yards allowed per coverage snap. He was great. Yeah, he was as hot and cold as you could possibly be at the position.
Right, and I just don't think he's a real contributor. All you have done, from a franchise perspective, is put more pressure on the team that, media-wise, arguably has more pressure on it every year and has failed every year. You've only put them closer with their feet to the fire.
Yeah.
Mike McCarthy, who, this is even a Packer bias, because I was ready for Mike to leave. I wasn't really part of the Packer time during McCarthy's era.
Right.
But Mike McCarthy inarguably has made that team much better. To where, by normal NFL standards, you would have to say he deserves a little bit more faith than what he's been given. I don't think he's a world beater. I don't think he's the greatest coach in the world. But he took a team that was continually underachieving, and it looks like they're kind of overachieving every year with Mike McCarthy in that position. Is that all Mike? No. Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb.
I hate that Michael Parsons is on that team, and I but yes, Michael Parsons is so much fun, and he's so good.
Yes, but getting a few of those blue chip players to kind of fall to you in the right positions helps you a lot. To finally have Jerry Jones at least look like, I don't think Stephen Jones is like the greatest GM in the world, but it certainly seems like he listens and is a little bit more level-headed than his father. And is a good balance to Jerry in that way, where Jerry still wants to make the splash move, and I think Steven dampens it a little bit in the right direction.
Yeah.
But they have done absolutely nothing for the past couple of years to improve. And now the owners essentially threaten to drop a nuclear bomb on the franchise if they do not win a Super Bowl. And they have proven, time in, time out, they do not have the defense to consistently win. And we're talking about the big teams. The little teams, they feast on them.
Yeah.
DeMarcus Lawrence looks great against half these bad teams. He looks like a non-factor against the good teams. The only player that even looks like a contributor half the time on their defense against good teams is Micah Parsons. And unfortunately, the good teams know how to neutralize him, so he doesn't look that special. Because it's Micah and nothing else on that defense. And then that offense, you're just not. They have one true wide receiver. Brandon Cooks' health is completely questionable, and he's your number 2. They don't really have a tight end option. Schoonmaker's not bad, but he's not great. Who's the other guy?
Ferguson?
Yeah, Ferguson's not. Again, Ferguson I don't think is bad, but I don't think he's great. And is anyone running the ball there?
They just signed Zeke Elliott. He's awesome, right? They just re-signed Zeke. It's going to be just like 2016.
Again, detriment. You made yourself worse, not better. That is the most Cowboys move of cowboy moves. Let's bring our old guy back because it'll sell jerseys. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And just nothing good is coming out of Dallas. zero positivity is coming out of
Yeah.
Dallas.
Yeah.
And that's the thing where I look at, like, even San Francisco. We've been having our private messages,
Right.
myself, you, and Minraj. And Minraj, we're playfully trying to push him off the plank while also at the same
Sure.
time still recognizing, hey, it's San Francisco. They're really fucking
Right.
good.
You're fine.
They'll
Yeah.
figure it out, right? Even San Francisco still has some positivity because they show their willingness to go, hey, guys, like, we're trying here, but not everyone can get paid, and we're trying to pay
Right.
everyone, and we can't pay everyone. So they show stability even when you disagree with what they're doing.
Yeah.
And Dallas just has no positivity whatsoever. And if you're a Dallas fan, you're far closer to collapse than you
Yeah.
are a Super Bowl, and your expectations are Super Bowl or bust, and you aren't even a top 6 team. Like, I would believe Detroit's going to win a Super Bowl before I believe Dallas is going to win a Super Bowl. I have no faith in the Eagles, and I could see the Eagles winning the Super Bowl before I could see the Cowboys winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you did a lot of good there, and I'm gonna you alley oop this to me from half court, and I'm gonna dunk it because it's Dallas. I'm gonna just say my piece here real quick. The Michael Parsons thing, he should have been a Giant. Dave Gettleman, I will never forget. You did so many bad things, but trading out of that spot and letting Dallas get him instead of, and then we took Kadarius Toney is a travesty among many of his horrific crimes against our guys. The other part is that Michael Parsons was never going to play edge for them. He was always a middle linebacker like he
And they
was
just
at Penn
lucked
State.
into it, man.
And then they literally had 4 defensive ends go down from injuries and COVID, and they just played him at end, and then he had 11 and a half sacks in 10 games. And it's like, oh, he's good at this. Dallas didn't even want to play him at end. He's the best. He's just one of the best edges in the freaking league. So just luck into that is unbelievable, and it's just extremely frustrating. But I'll always remember, you kind of mentioned this before, I remember the Eagles just zone read Micah Parsons the entire game and destroyed them. Like, it was literally just like, is Micah going to come at Hurts, or is he going to play the running back? And we'll do the opposite. And if he hesitates, we're going to throw the slant behind him. And they scored 40 points on that Dallas team because you're right, there's nothing behind him. Obviously the CD contract just came out. He's the second highest paid non-quarterback in the league. Not going to say he doesn't deserve it. He does a lot for that team. He is at least in my opinion, he is a slot dependent receiver at this point. The way that he plays is much better from the slot than outside. I'm not going to sit here and fully debate that right now, but he's deserving of the money from what he does for that team and how productive he is, and by all means. You don't have the money now to pay Dak and Micah, so you don't. And Dak does a lot at the line of scrimmage. And I hate to admit this, but Dak's pretty good at his job. He sits there, he calls the protections, he audibles. He throws some seam balls that I'm like, man, I can't believe you got that over that backer in front of that safety. So like you said, not necessarily a great player. I mean, he targets CeeDee Lamb a ton because they have nothing else, but he throws a great seam ball, and he's doing everything at the line again, which is sort of Mike McCarthy's thing, right? He let Rodgers do it for a long time, and he sort of gives them it feels like a outline, and he's like, hey, you can kind of do what you need to from here. Which, like, from a coaching perspective, let your best players do their thing, right? Get out of their way. Um, I heard a take, I don't remember where it was from, was that they didn't put a lot of weight on the playoff losses for Dak. I am certainly, and this is the only frame of reference I have, so like this is a little bit of anecdotal evidence than anything else. I was a solid athlete in my day, and I was on an NCAA championship team, and the argument was that the bigger sample size is more important. I can certainly tell you that a random meet in November against a crappy team that really didn't matter versus the NCAA championship felt a lot different. And I
Yeah.
understand NFL players are NFL players, but for the disparity in his playoff performances from his regular season, it certainly seems that the playoff environment gets to Dak a little bit. And I'm not, you hate to like peg him that way, and like, and if I'm trying to be objective and not just dunk on Dallas, like, you hate to be like, it's the counter Eli argument, right? Where Eli was always a 500 to 600 win percentage regular season, and he's 11-4 all time in the playoffs. Like, once
Right.
you got him in the core, it was over. But it seems like he just continues to struggle. Like, the Green Bay just picked them apart. It was never a game. And for them to supposedly be the Super Bowl competitive team again, I think Dak is good at his job. I think as I was saying about Dak, you have like large sample size, which is like a pretty successful regular season production record, advanced statistics, all some good stuff, and then you have a small sample size of pretty horrific playoff performances from his end. Um, and again, the argument is like you want to look at large sample versus small sample, but I think the small sample does have something else to it. I don't think you can look at a playoff environment the same way you look at a regular season environment. It's the pressure's different. The it's like, putting your hand in a pot of water that's on the stove and the stove isn't on. It's like, yeah, this feels cool. And then I'm going to turn the stove to, 250 and put my hand in it and be like, I expect it to not burn me still. There's a different, you're adding different vectors and factors to the situation, I think.
Yeah.
And it certainly seems that, in the sample size that kind of conversation wraps around, Dak just isn't that guy. And like, you hate to just be like, he's not a winner, but like, it certainly seems that like something changes in his performances when he gets to the playoffs. Or, and there's also, the other stat that I saw was he's like the highest scored against, the Dallas Cowboys are the highest scored against team in the playoffs, which is also a defensive issue. I think Mike Zimmer will help them. I think Zimmer's defense is better than what they've had.
Yeah.
But I certainly, so the other thing is, this is a question if you're Stephen Jones, and maybe Jerry's got the final stroke. Who are you letting go between Dak and Micah?
If it's me, I'm letting Dak go.
Yeah, I probably would.
Eventually, it's, to me, Dak feels like it's the same situation with Tony Romo. It's just you got a better Tony Romo. I thought Tony Romo was wildly overrated when he was a star. Yep. That felt like the biggest. Well, he's a Cowboy, so he's a star. Tony Romo never played to that level to me.
Nope. All very good.
And I think Dak is a souped up version of Tony Romo, and sadly, the situation is bore out exactly like that.
Yep.
Even without the money being what it's going to have to be to re-sign him, the most valuable player to their team, arguably the NFL, in terms of their success, is Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
On defense, like, obviously, Myles Garrett is probably a better pass rusher than him. Like, I think the top three pass rushers, obviously, are TJ Watt and Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons. But when I look at what they do for their teams, Cleveland and Pittsburgh have both done enough around that defense to at least kind of help those players to where if they lose them for a game or two, they're not going to be obviously the same level, but they at least can function. A Dallas Cowboy team without Micah Parsons on that defense not only can't function, can only embarrass itself. It's that bad. And that's where I remember going into the playoff game going, I think we can do this. Like, it'll be fine. The only thing is just don't let Micah Parsons beat and you'll be fine. And then look what they fucking did. They didn't let Micah Parsons beat them. They let him get close a couple times. And Aaron Jones saved their ass, which is why I'm a little like, I don't know about this Jacobs for Jones trade, or the switch, but nonetheless. But Green Bay did exactly what San Francisco does every time they play Dallas. Just don't let Micah Parsons beat and you're fine.
Right, and you handle CeeDee Lamb out of the slot, and you're fine. There's nothing else you have to worry about.
It's what the great teams do to the good teams that pretend they're great. They just pick you apart. Absolutely. And this is a note that I didn't say for Green Bay that I think is really important for this right now. Is when you're riding high on your confidence, occasionally you need to get your ass kicked to remember it's not going to be handed to you. It's something that I've loved when Shannon Sharp talked about the 15-1 Broncos in '99, where he's just like, we eventually got to the point where it was so much pressure after we got over the phase of we just thought it was going to be given to us. It was so much pressure to keep that going that the best thing that happened to us was losing, right? Because we finally got the kick in the ass to get the change that we needed. Right. And I loved the fact that Green Bay got embarrassed 2 weeks ago by Denver in a preseason game where even you had to go, oh, this is ugly. Because it was a young team that was feeling themselves and finally got their teeth knocked in again and went, oh shit, we got to go to work. And it shows because the next game when they didn't even play their starters, all those guys kicked ass last week. And yes, it's a preseason game, but it's just the mentality shift that you need to have happen. Look, Kansas City got their ass kicked time and time and time again last year. Yep. If you look at their regular season performance, Kansas City had no business winning a Super Bowl last year. Yep. But they understood the message and they got their shit together. And that's just Dallas cannot get their shit together. It's the easiest way to say it. You need to get your teeth kicked in and you need to get your shit together. And they can only get their asses kicked and they can never get their shit together. And that's the best way I know how to close this fucking Dallas thing. It's that.
Great. Yeah, it's well said.
All right, well, I'm going to go a little bit faster on a hope here because I do want to cover 3 teams for each category.
Okay.
This is intentionally a short one that I think you are going to eat alive and disagree with.
Okay.
This is very much situational.
Okay.
I have hope for the Washington Commanders.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, go ahead.
So here's what it is.
Let's hear it.
I do not think this is a teams win category here, okay?
Okay.
Very much so. This is vibes again.
Okay.
The one thing I will say is, 1, Washington has been, at best, a worst 5 team to watch in the league for ever.
For a long time. Since RG3.
Since RG3, they've just been...
Yeah.
It hurts your feelings to watch the Commanders, right?
Doesn't hurt my feelings because they're the only team the Giants can beat. So
right, but like if you just get stuck watching a primetime game with Washington, you're just like, fuck. I have so many more things I could do, but my football addiction just won't let me turn the TV off, right?
Right.
I do think that Jaden Daniels has at least shown throughout the preseason through basic looks very much so, that he at least can be athletic and succeed to at least make them look watchable.
Okay. Sure.
Not win, but watchable.
Yeah, sure.
But I also think this was the first step in an organization understanding they've been a little too close to fire sale on their defense, which I do not like. I'm not crazy about their drafting. But to me, this is the correct turning of the page in which they just go, our ownership was the worst in sports.
Yeah.
And the biggest embarrassment to any league was Dan Snyder. We finally have that solved, and it looks like we're finally on the path to getting some of our stadium issues fixed by possibly getting back to DC.
New naming rights, yeah.
And got new naming rights. They're going to be making a little bit more money, and it looks like DC might actually play ball with them a little bit because they don't have Dan Snyder being a fucking prick.
Yes.
And although I know you certainly believe that Jaden Daniels is not the right pick for them, I'm higher on Daniels than you are. I do think that Jaden Daniels can at least bring some form of not only watchability but fun and confidence to that team where they at least seem like maybe with a couple athletic plays they can sneak a few games. I think this team's got a 5. I think this team could be 5-12. This is not this is a wild card team kind of thing. But in terms of they've been it's like the worst case of my Chicago argument. It's like that team and that fan base, there was no reason to even care. I remember taking a few trips through Virginia, and when I'd occasionally see Washington name the name of the team merchandise, I was just like, I don't know if I would be brave enough to even have that because it's just so embarrassing to be associated with. And it looks like they're, even though I don't like their uniform changes, I don't like a lot of the things that they do business-wise, at least it's positive business from the sense of we're getting somewhere, and it's a recognition of we're fixing a lot of the issues we have to at least become an NFL franchise again, which should give you hope, and I think Jaden Daniels can at least make it fun, exciting. Like, I think best case scenario, because I do not think Jaden Daniels is Kyler Murray, although I'm one of the highest Kyler Murray fans that you will find. I think this could be a similar experience to year one Kyler Murray, where they were at 5-11, but they were super fun to watch, and they got competitive in a few games, and they pulled one crazy game out of their ass where I think Arizona beat San Francisco that first year when they had no business doing it.
And Kyler Murray's running around like a crazy person.
And I could see Jaden Daniels having that one game against like a Dallas or a Philly, and just everyone just goes crazy, and that's the highlight of everyone's year. That's the hope I'm talking about. I'm not talking about great wild card wins or anything like that.
I think with the context of that, I can be a little more on board. The thing I will say about Jaden Daniels is the same thing I've said to people about Bo Nix. If you watch the plays that he's success, right? So I watched the entire Washington Commanders and Jets game, everybody lost their mind. So the first snap of that series, so everybody lost their mind is how it ended, right? The first snap of that series, he throws a screen 5 yards over Austin Eckler's head. It was Austin Eckler or Brian Robinson Jr. I don't remember. Just like can't complete a screen 3 yards away from him. Like is like not even close.
Right.
The next play is the thing he did at LSU all the time, which is zone read, throw the ball 20 yards down the field to a open De'Ami Brown, which was just sort of like the guy was open by 5 yards, an easy throw. He then has a zone read in the end zone where he runs to the end zone from 3 yards out. Bo Nix did the exact same thing Jaden Daniels did against Indianapolis, which was just zone read out to the flat. This guy's crashing. The ball's getting out quick. I don't think either of those quarterbacks are great. Jaden Daniels is an exponentially better athlete than Bo Nix, so I do think to your point of he's going to be able to get away with some stuff, 100%. I also think he is going to get himself injured. If you look at the way that he runs, especially at LSU, you run that way against Philly, even against you let Dexter Lawrence hit you like that,
You're done.
Your season's over. You're 170 pounds. It's done, dude. You're over. But to your point of like, yes, this is. I think it's going to be. I think the Murray comparison is I think Murray has a better skill set than Daniels.
Oh,
and
yeah.
people do forget like breakout age is a real thing. Like to be 25 years old and to be like better than 18-year-olds is you should be doing that.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be. I was going to make the RG3 comp without Kyle Shanahan to fix you. You know what I mean? So, but I think you're right. I think he'll just take off and like he'll do some stuff. And the Giants specifically struggle with mobile quarterbacks. Like I can see them beating us for the first time in 3 years, 100%. And I agree that's a good take. I can live with 5. And I'll try to piggyback off that. And I am going to do the homer thing here. I am going to say I have some hope for the New York Giants. And in the same vein that you just said, Vegas has them as the second worst team in the NFL. Vegas has them as this number 2 pick. I think they're a little better than that. I think they're going to be.
That's ridiculous.
That's what I'm saying. I think they're going to be a 5 to 6 win team on their own. And again, I'll try to keep this a little quicker as we go through this. So obviously the issue, it really begins and ends with Daniel Jones. 3.2 big time throw percentage. He's only played a full season once since his career began in 2019. Though the 1 year he did play, when he's able to use his legs and he's protected, he's shown we can win a divisional playoff game with him. Biggest issue, obviously, besides that is the offensive line. Last year Giants allowed the second most sacks in NFL history, passing the Houston Texans and sitting only behind Randall Cunningham's 1986 Eagles. The Giants allowed pressure on 44% of his dropbacks. They were also the lowest rated pass and run blocking team by PFF. We had the most quick pressures, which is a quick pressure is defined as a pressure under 2.5 seconds. So we led the league in that. Our average time to pressure was 2.53. So almost every pressure was a quick pressure the entire year. Pressure to sack rate was 14%, which there's only 2 other teams that were in double digits, and those were 10%. So we are far and away the worst offensive line in the league. We had John Runyon Jr., who we've talked about. Development in Green Bay was great. We had Illuminor to play right tackle. Evan Neal, despite what the press conference says today, he's going to play right guard when he's healthy. John Michael Schmitz takes another step forward. The line is going to be better. Like even this preseason, the line was middle of the pack in pressure rate, which is, again, we were historically outlier bad last year.
That goes from here to here simply by being average.
Yes, exactly. So I expect that to be better and be a big thing. Brian Dabble seems to have taken play calling back, which I'm also really excited about. I think he should have done that earlier. You win Coach of the Year with Daniel Jones and figuring that out. What else do you really need to say about what he's going to do? Obviously, also in Buffalo, turned Josh Allen's raw talent into what he is now. Did a lot of the same stuff with Daniel Jones with the quick reads, the RPOs, the deep shots off motion. Jones certainly doesn't have the tools that Allen has, but you can see some of those same thought process coming through. I hope he reestablishes some of that culture, some of that speed. And again, health has been a big thing. You lose so many people, so many linemen, so many receivers to health. You go from there. The front office is, I think, the thing that as a trying to be objective Giants fan, we're a little concerned about in terms of the not lack of direction, but just in terms of execution. There's only 3 players left from Dave Gettleman's time there. One of them being Dexter Lawrence, which is the only one that really matters. And Azeez Ojulari are the only real 2 that matter. But I do think in terms of the positive, Shane has done a nice job of being ahead of the market. Daniel Jones is now the 18th highest paid quarterback in the league. That's probably still a little high, but it's really not.
It's where it should be. It's where it should be in terms of his hierarchy.
Yeah. Yeah. Brian Burns, despite just being traded for and re-signed, is still the fourth highest edge paid player in the league this year, which I think is actually pretty good value for him. Andrew Thomas is the fifth highest paid tackle in the league, despite being 3 years into a 5-year deal. So, like, again, even with the resetting of the market, and Thomas consistently grades out as a top 5 tackle in pass rush win rate and pass block rates, like one of the true stalwarts of the offensive line when he's healthy. And Dexter Lawrence is the 10th highest paid defensive tackle, as I would argue than the best defensive tackle, or at least the best nose tackle in the league. I would argue there's some arguments for Chris Jones and Quinton Williams and some of the other spots, but able to get ahead of the curve there in a lot of those contracts to not get himself stuck. I think he's drafted better than he's gotten credit for. KT had 12 sacks last year. People would think he was terrible. He was like fourth in the NFL in sacks.
Yeah.
They tend to be pretty timely. He has a high strip sack percentage too, which is something you look for to get the ball. You then add Brian Burns to that line, who, the defensive line is going to have to be a strength of this team. Dexter Lawrence last year was fourth in pressure rate with 15%. That's regardless of position. That's including every defensive end, every defensive tackle playing from the nose. He was the fourth best pass rush win rate player in the entire NFL, behind the three players you mentioned earlier, which were Watt, Garrett, and Parsons. He was the fourth best pass rusher in the NFL, playing nose tackle. You add a guy who has the fourth best get-off rate, which is get-off rate is essentially a metric by Summer Sports that says how quickly is a player a yard into the backfield after the snap, behind the three players we also just mentioned, which is Watt, Parsons, and Garrett. In reverse order of that, Garrett was number one, but you have the number 4 pass rush win rate in one stat and the number 4 in a different stat that I think is going to be incredibly effective. Again, we talked about that pressure tends to be sticky year to year versus coverage, which is why I do appreciate going pass rush pressures over trying to stabilize corner this year. I know corner 2 is still a problem, and the Giants are, we signed a couple today.
Yeah.
And then also in terms of just adding, Banks has been a good pick, JMS, Hyatt's come on, Bellinger's been good for us, McFadden, Hawkins and Gray are all going to be positive plus starters for the Giants this year. And then obviously Malik Neighbors. When Sauce Gardner came out and said, I had trouble, he's the hardest guy to play in a scrimmage this year and in practice. He's great in and out of his breaks. It reminded me of Richard Sherman's comments of Odell Beckham in 2014 when he's like, that was the hardest cover I had all year. It's obviously not the NFL yet, but, at LSU, he was seventh in yards after contact, second in explosive reception, so he can take it short and go. He can catch it deep. Explosive receptions or catches over 15 air yards. He was first in routes run. All of those at 20 years old. We just talked about Jaden Daniels being 25. This is a guy who, at a very young age, is dominating the college level. Is going to barely be 21 by the time the season starts. And that's really the hope in terms of, like, again, I went to the preseason game against the Lions, and all anybody wanted to watch was Malik Neighbors run routes. He wasn't getting the ball. And
Yeah.
in terms of the narrative, Brian Burns and Malik Neighbors on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball have given some hope, not just from a statistical advantage perspective, but from a we believe we can do this, and then the added to the offensive line. So again, not sitting here saying the Giants are winning the NFC East. We're probably fighting again with Washington for the third or fourth place spot in the division, but I don't think we're a 4-win team.
Well, I'm already looking. I would pick you. I'm picking you week 1. You play Minnesota.
Minnesota with Sam Darnold.
Who's supposed to cover Malik Neighbors in Minnesota?
Yeah. It's a good point.
Okay, you go week 2. You play Washington.
Yep.
I would still pick the Giants in that one. It's winnable. Sadly, due to recent history, that could be that Jaden Daniels game that I talked about.
Right.
But at the same time, if you have Azeez Ojulari as your third rotational edge player, that bodes very well for your pass rush, which is then inherently going to stabilize your linebacking core and your defensive backfield. Honestly, because of who the fuck knows with Deshaun Watson, it would be very tough.
Yeah,
but
Thomas had the game of his life against Myles Garrett. That would be the thing.
But you could possibly sneak out of Cleveland with a win.
Yeah.
And then you get to a stretch where it's going to be tough. It's Dallas, Seattle, Cincinnati, Philly. I'd still pick you against Pittsburgh. But there's some winnable games here. Panthers, Buccaneers, Saints, Falcons, Colts. They're all winnable games. This isn't I think your biggest thing is, again, going to the context of hope. I love the fact that you did bring up your home team in this one. I almost chose the Giants as well. I knew somehow we'd talk about them, so I was just like, I have it in case we need to. I think the Brian Burns pickup is huge. When you stabilize a pass rush, it stabilizes everything. It's another way to complement another team we talked about in Green Bay. When Green Bay got Rashawn Gary back, Rashawn Gary is a very good pass rusher. Not great, but very good pass rusher. But the second that stabilized with Preston Smith, you played an undrafted rookie free agent and a 7th rounder when Jair Alexander was out. And not only were they okay, they played well because you had consistent pressure to back them up, and it allowed them to play confident rookie football in which they just said, I don't know, fuck it, I'll just try to cover him. And it works. I think that's a great way to stabilize a lot of pieces of your defense.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Malik Neighbors alone being there changes the game.
Yep.
Although you are higher on Neighbors than I was in this draft class, I cannot deny the physical tools and gifts that Malik Neighbors has is unreal. And if used correctly, he will be an impact player for years. He will be an impact player for years as long as his health stays up, which he's 20, 21. I would hope that would happen. So you have now a receiving threat. Devin Singletary is a good back. Nothing crazy, but a good back. And just now having it that it's not just Saquon, but you have Malik Neighbors on the outside, you have Singletary with an improved offensive line, and you have a Bellinger, and maybe you can get a Wandale in there, maybe you can get a few of those other guys in there just to be rotational, Jalen Hyatt again, Hyatt, to be rotational pieces.
Yeah.
I would not be flabbergasted at all if we saw due to really good coaching and breaks going their way, at least a 7 or 8 win Giants team.
Yeah.
That sneaks 2 good wins. The only thing I think that sucks is I think that hope in this case could keep you in purgatory because you'd be outside of where you really want to be from a draft perspective. Because unless Daniel Jones really turns it this year, the natural assumption is
he's gone.
He's a net negative, not a net positive for your team. But I certainly believe that they are going to return to a heavily competitive team. Even when they were down last year, Tyrod had them looking competitive in a lot of games.
Right.
And the games that they got embarrassed that people remember them by, it's weird to say, well, Dallas got embarrassed by Green Bay and you didn't give them the same benefit of the doubt. Like, when they got embarrassed by Dallas week 1, they were moving the ball. And it's just one fumble return for a touchdown completely changes that game.
Right. Then a blocked field goal return for a touchdown, and it's 21-0 before you knew anything.
Exactly. It's just like, you just look at that and you just kind of, I was telling this of all people to my mother-in-law on vacation. I was like, when you're losing, sometimes you just got to take the fucking L and just accept, don't make excuses, just take the fucking L and walk away and be prepared for the next one. And it felt like that was a lot of the Giants stuff last year. So I do think there's hope here. I think Shane is doing the best with what he can. I think my issue with your front office, it always seems like they are the close but no cigar team right now, and it's just such a shitty place to be in. Because you're always looking at, well, we did stuff, but we didn't get the guys we want to. I mean, you even brought up with Elton Jenkins earlier, where he's the guy you've wanted for years, and you're like, I thought we had him, and then he re-signed in Green Bay. Or you lose Xavier McKinney, fortunately to Green Bay, But Saquon thing's a little bit different. Which other way you read Hard Knocks, that's a different story entirely. But if this team still had Saquon, I would be even higher on them than I already am. But I don't think that's as much of a loss as people want to believe it is due to a Hard Knocks argument. But I do believe there could be some hope there, and the Giants returning to competitive play that you can at least be proud of your team for is hope, and that's a big deal. So I'm all for it. Let's turn the page. Your last no hope team. Who you got? We can try to be quick if we can, but
got it. Pittsburgh Steelers. Plain and simple. Are we the same one? Nice.
I'll briefly mention a second one just so we can say we did 3 teams, but yeah.
Okay. Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to make this short. So I wrote this. But obviously, Russell was named the starter today. I wouldn't have went with Russell Wilson. I would have went
absolutely
with
not.
So they're basically the same player from a passing perspective, and I'm just going to read the stats really, really quickly. So bottom 5 in all of these categories: EPA per play, pass grade, turnover-worthy play percentage, average depth of target, big time throw percentage, and sack percentage. All bottom 5 for both of them. Terrible, awful, bad at their jobs. And this is just a fun little stat. Russell Wilson has taken sacks at the highest rate in NFL history. I'm just going to read you, and I know we're tight on time, but I just wonder. I think this is fun. I'm just going to read this for you.
That's super tight. I just want to make sure we finish the segments.
Yeah. Fran Tarkenton, number 1 in sacks all time. So I'm going to give you how many sacks, the games, and passing attempts, okay? So Fran Tarkenton, 500 sacked 570 times, 246 games, 6,467 attempts. Tom Brady, 565 sacks, 335 games, 12,050 attempts. Roethlisberger, 554, 249, 7,661. Aaron Rodgers is 4th, 531 sacks, 231 games, 7,661 attempts. Same as Ben Roethlisberger, which is weird at this point. Russell Wilson is 5th all-time in sacks taken right now with 527. He's with 188 games and only 5,665 attempts. Just for perspective, number 6 is your boy Brett Favre. Brett Favre has taken 525 sacks in 302 games and 10,169 attempts. So assuming Russell Wilson plays 16 games this year, which is, that's what most of those seasons were, so that's why I'm kind of working on that 16-game number. If he stays at this current rate, he will overtake Brady for the second most sacked quarterback of all time in almost 8 less seasons. So he is debilitating to any offense you're going to put him on. Even when he was in Seattle, he was doing this. And even when they had good offensive lines, he was, he'd get out of it and throw a random bomb occasionally, but he was taking sacks at the highest rate in NFL history. And now you have an offensive line that is not very good right now behind him. I do want to, real quick, Mike Tomlin's the man. I don't know how Mike Tomlin does what he does. The Pittsburgh had negative total point differential this year, and they were above 500.
Yeah.
He is a phenomenal leader of men. He's a phenomenal coach. I've heard him talk a few times on Ryan Clark's podcast. Just would love to have dinner with him sometime and be like, just listen to him talk for a while.
I admire him as a human being so much.
Yeah. You deal with Big Ben, you deal with, Antonio Brown, you deal with all that nonsense, and you keep winning. Great for you. Phenomenal for him. It was funny. So I actually wanted to circle back in terms of TJ Watt I gained a new level of respect for TJ Watt. For me, for a long time, it was always Garrett, Parsons, Watt. For me, I think it's Garrett, and then Watt is very close, and then it's Parsons after going into doing this. So, especially in terms of what they do for their team. So again, just going to some statistics for basically, this is again from stats and schemes from Summer Sports. EPA per play for the Steelers defense when Watt is on the field or off the field, okay, for the last 4 years. So TJ Watt, when he's on the field in 2020, they were the second best defense. Without him, they're 11th. In 2021, they were 7th versus 29th. In 2022, they were 2nd versus 32nd. 2nd versus 32nd. And then last year, they were 9th versus 30th when TJ Watt is not on the field. So TJ Watt is this entire defense. He is more so than Michael Parsons is to Dallas, which I did not realize that. And he is, man, he's fun. Like they do a great job in Pittsburgh of giving him winning matchups. Like Alex Highsmith, I think at times takes on a harder assignment to allow Watt to kind of move, but you have to have the ability to play inside, outside. Man, he's fun, and he's better. I'll be honest, he was always the top 3 guy for me, but he was always 3rd. I think after watching him, he is 2nd. However, that's if you can find a way to neutralize him in a similar sense that Dallas doesn't have the coordinators that maybe Pittsburgh does, or the coaching that Pittsburgh does. If you can figure that out, the rest of the team is dog water. There's nothing there that's good. I've at least judging from the data, I thought Michael Parsons was pretty good. Joey Porter gave up a lot more yards in coverage than I thought. We already know that's not sticky. And Watts already had some injury issues. He had that knee sprain that kept him out of the playoff game. He had 2 other knee sprains on that same side. He had a torn pectoral. So if these injuries start to mount up and he's not on the field, this defense is horrific. And we already know the offense is going to be bad. We know this is going to be an unproductive offense, whether it's Russell Wilson. But I think at least Justin Fields, if you played Justin Fields, you had a chance to
be fun,
to let him run, to do the Malik Neighbors thing, right? Again, the defense, and again, this is more of from my perspective, just like I would call it luck. The defense was the 5th least penalized in the NFL, and because of that, we're 6th best in points allowed in offensive drives ending in a turnover. Most of that was TJ Watt with strip sacks. despite being 21st in yards allowed, 16th in net yards gained per pass attempt, and 20th in rushing yards allowed. So essentially, they're getting very timely turnovers, which a lot of it, again, is TJ getting a strip sack or something like that. But turnovers, again, are not sticky, right? Interceptions, strip sacks are not something that is consistent year
They change year
to
to year so quick.
Exactly. Their drafting really hasn't been that great. Devin Bush, Deontay Johnson are playing elsewhere, but Chase Claypool, Anthony McFarland Jr., Najee Harris in the first round to try to just replace Le'Veon Bell. Obviously, the huge miss on Kenny Pickett. I don't know how you get over that. Broderick Jones is terrible. He's double arm punching every time he does it. But I just don't think if you continue to get improved play from, if Watson even stabilizes a little bit, you have obviously MVP and Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, and obviously Burrow, if he can stay healthy. Those teams are. This is a team that if Mike Tomlin doesn't work his magic, this could be a team picking in the top 3, especially if TJ Watt is not active.
Yeah, I mean, here's the biggest thing. You've covered so many statistics that I completely agree with, and I knew them without even knowing them. That's the saddest part. Yeah. I could have told you vaguely where they were without even looking at them.
Which is, in my opinion, that's how stats should work. Like, it should be like, I'm seeing this thing on the TV. I think this is right. Let me check the numbers on it. And It did. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
But I saw it in Green Bay, or I saw it last year with Green Bay and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was an inferior team to Green Bay. And it was right at that time where Jordan was starting to figure it out. And then they miss one goddamn extra point, and they got to force an issue at the end of the game, and Jordan's just he's got like 45 seconds to just whip one and just hope it works, because it was just bad. And not to give Jordan an excuse there, but that's just how that Pittsburgh team worked. They would just get themselves into these spots where they wouldn't fuck themselves over. They'd get one break, and then they'd eke out a win against a team that was far superior to them talent-wise. Yeah. That's been Mike Tomlin's work for the last 5 years. Going back to that fucking Duck Hodges shit, man.
Yeah. Yep.
I was in Pittsburgh.
Mason Rudolph.
I was in Pittsburgh for a game that Duck Hodges was playing, actually, because that was on a away rotation. I was watching a Pittsburgh game in Pittsburgh, and you could just tell the city was like, who fucking cares? Yeah. Like, who cares? But where is your future here, man? Like, George Pickens, I don't even know if George Pickens wants to be on the team. I don't think super highly of George Pickens, but he's clearly their best offensive option. Yeah. Freiermuth is good.
Fine. He's a tight end. You're not going to win on
he's good, not great.
You just missed on a first-round quarterback. You don't have you can't do that. It tanks your team.
Right. And the Kenny Pickett choice is one of the most indefensible that I can see, because the worst thing about Kenny Pickett, ironically, is media coverage. So many times when such bad drafts. Half the time when you look, you're like, hey, it wasn't a good pick, but it's not as bad as you're making it out to be, or hey, it was a good pick, but it wasn't as good as you're making it out to be, right?
Right.
That draft class is heralded as one of the worst draft classes for quarterbacks in the past 30 years. Like, it was a bad class, right? And to take Kenny Pickett, who had no business even possibly going in the 3rd round, with your first pick because, he's a Pittsburgh guy.
Right.
It was like anti-Aiden Hutchinson. He's from here. We believe in him. He's great. I was like, nothing about Kenny Pickett, outside of the fact that he was from Pittsburgh, said I should be picked by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Right. Kenny Pickett was on my do not draft list, because I was like, I wouldn't touch Kenny Pickett ever.
No, can't do it.
And they have not drafted well at all. People can it's embarrassing every year when people in the media, they're picking 14th, 20th, 22nd, 18th, something like that. No one in their right mind should be able to go up to a media podium and say, I know for a fact this team is going to take this player at this pick.
Yep.
And for years now.
Yeah.
Even in the garage when we're fucking around and you've already freaked out over a Giants pick and Derek has to talk you down and I have to talk you down and still be positive. And after a couple brewskis have been flowing throughout that room for a lot of people, Myself
Yeah.
not included because I'm always bringing everybody down with the straight edge. But even
Keep us.
when we have to be on that level, we're all just going like, yeah, it's Najee Harris. 20
Yep.
minutes later, Pittsburgh pick is in, Najee Harris. We're like,
Right.
Kenny
Told you.
Pickett. Fucking knew
Yep.
Kenny Pickett was going to happen. It's just embarrassing. And you know what Pittsburgh's football is going to be. And that's where I think the last year when the media conversation started to go towards taking Tomlin out.
Yeah. Can't do that.
Like, I think it sucks because it's just like catch-22. You take Mike Tomlin out, that team's going back to where they were in the 60s before Chuck Noll fixed it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's kind of the Dallas principle. It's not working, so something has to change, and eventually it can't just be the same guy. Is it the GM or is it Tomlin or is it the Rooneys getting a little more involved than they used to? Who knows? But this team is just not functional. There's no hope, and Pittsburgh fans know that. They know that they're destined to somehow go 9-8, maybe be the 7th seed, maybe be the 8th seed, and be gifted an extra game sometimes, and know they're just going to get embarrassed. It's just the way it is, and they're going to wear their number 90 jerseys because it's the only real pride they have. And I could have said this faster. I'll just close with it. This team's starting quarterback is Russell Wilson. I don't need to say anything more.
That's it. End of sentence. Yep.
So I'll go quick on the no hope here, because it's a similar vein. New Orleans Saints.
Yeah.
You are old. You are slow. You have one young, promising player. One. And the best clip to say it is that player. Did you see the Chris Olave clip from like a week ago?
I don't think I did, no.
It's just basic NFL Network. We're going around every camp. We're talking to the star player, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Chris, obviously we get it. Everything's been up and down in New Orleans, but you guys clearly got a lot of talent still here. Has there been a moment or a play or anything in practice or preseason thus far that makes you confident that you guys can still be really competitive, make a push for the playoffs? And he hums and haws for like a minute and a half, and he doesn't even lie. He just goes,
yeah.
And his face looks like mine. He's just like, not really, man. And it's just so embarrassing because
that's disheartening.
It's so disheartening because you look at, even in preseason play, Derek Carr looks like worse Derek Carr.
Yeah.
They still have Marshawn Lattimore on that team, but he is not the same as Marshawn Lattimore from 2-3 years ago. Right. He's still good. I'm not saying he's not good, but
Cam Jordan's another year older. Reese is for
Demario Davis is a year older. Alvin Kamara is still on that team. Jesus fucking Christ, how old?
Yeah.
Taysom Hill is lining up as your ex receiver half the time right now. What the fuck are we talking about? What are we doing? Yeah. And this is a textbook example of why people don't like a Parcells style coach who just says, and me, I love Bill Parcells. I love talking Bill Parcells in that family garage, but it was so clear that at the end of the Breeze era, Sean Payton was like, fuck it, I just want these guys because they're my best option. Just keep paying them. And this is all the sins of Sean Payton, showing that he shouldn't have as much opinion as he probably should about personnel. That this season, to me, if this team wins 8 games, you better. I just saw this recently in a Vice special. It's the first time in U.S. history that less than 50% of the population is now going to church, or even affiliates with something religiously in that vein. If this team wins 8 games, the entire city of New Orleans should all go to church and bless whatever God is above. Because this team is so bad. It is geriatric. This looks like fucking Earl Campbell when he went to the fucking Saints with Bum Phillips and he couldn't do shit. Rough. And he had one good game. And there's going to be one game that Cam Jordan shines and looks like Cam Jordan of old. And it's all going to coalesce and everyone's going to believe, see, the Saints can still go. And you know what's going to fucking happen? They're going to go 7-10, 8-9, miss the playoffs, and everyone's going to say, but there are Saints. Don't
Right.
fucking do it. Blow it up. Go 0-17 if you have to. Cut
Right.
everybody and just start
Yeah.
over. No hope.
And yeah, yep. And Mickey Loomis is the king of fuck them picks and just sign every. I mean, I think they're what 110 million over the cap next year if it keeps the way
Uh,
it is.
I believe it's actually 150.
Oh my god. So like legitimately no hope for the future. The only and again the only thing I would say and like the Saints have the easiest strength of schedule this year. So like there is a chance they steal a couple, which is actually probably worse because then you're not even gonna get the picks that you want to move and go from there. So really, I think that's a good one. I just think that and your boy Bryce Young looks better. If the Panthers come on a little bit, the Saints could be in a lot of trouble. And they don't. The other thing is you really don't have hope for the future with your cap situation. So really good choice there. I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I want nothing more than Bryce Young just to win those 2 games against the Saints because then all of New Orleans will finally go, this shit ain't working. Get him out. Get him out. Get someone real. And let Chris Olave play for another fucking team because I want Chris Olave to be good. I like Chris Olave. Yeah. He is good. He's the only reason they even look functional on offense half the time.
Correct.
And then someone else fucks it up. His name's Derek Carr.
Yep. Always.
All right.
Never forget Derek Carr threw away a pass on 4th and goal as time expired as a Raider because he didn't want the interception. So, one of my favorite stats. I remember that watching that game.
Haven't done this. I'm going to try to keep this very smooth, very quick, and easy. Changing the vibes, positive. I'm going with the Chargers. They just cleaned house the right way, and they just said, this is reset. We're going all toughness with Jim Harbaugh, and it finally seems like they just said, we're turning the page. Like the past 10 years, it always feels like the Chargers are 2 years behind what they should be doing, and it feels like, from all reports, it literally sounds as if after every practice, Ortiz and Harbaugh go into a room and just say, this guy ain't going to cut it. Get him out and get somebody else in here to try. Right. Like, they're just turning over every stone possible to just say, we're going to make this team good. And the one thing I will say is the way they're trying to build this team, ironically enough, with no Mike Williams, no Keenan Allen, this feels like, sadly somehow, the most help Justin Herbert will ever have. Because he has a coach that understands, I can't just let this guy get sacked 1 billion times and get hit and throw 50 passes and still lose in fun games. Like, that's not how we're going to win playoff games and win Super Bowls. And you could say a lot about Jim Harbaugh as an NFL coach, but he's sure as hell successful when he's in it. So that's where I would go with positivity there.
Yeah, quick one. I love Justin Herbert's one of my favorite quarterbacks. He's a ton of fun. I don't love Greg Roman. I think I
don't think it's a fit for him, but yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough match. I think the other thing I'm a little concerned about is just the skill positions on that team. Like, you're going to run the ball. Who's running the ball right now for the Chargers?
Gus Edwards.
Yeah, Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, right?
I think so, yeah.
The Ravens combo, the Greg Roman Ravens combo. I mean, both those guys have no knees anymore. Yeah. And that's fine. The offensive line's going to be better, but, like, you're going to throw the ball to bust Quentin Johnson or Josh Palmer. Like, I understand you can scheme it out, but like I'm a little worried just about the skill positions.
Quick timeout here. Not for technical difficulties this time. Do you know who's running punt gunner right now? Quentin Johnston.
No. Nice, love that. Good for him.
And to me, that is the biggest fix ever. Is when the coach comes in and just says, this shit ain't working. Let's find him a place. Fuck it, because this ain't gonna be it.
But I do think that's the immediate future, right? I do think, again, looking at cap health, looking at you have your quarterback, looking at you have a coach that knows how to win, versus like you have good balance in your offense. You know when to take shots when you need it. I think the direction of the Chargers people should feel positive about.
Yeah, and that's always my big thing is hope does not have to be Super Bowl. If you're a fan and you think hope is Super Bowl or bust, you will be unhappy 99% of your lifetime as a fan. You can't do it. Yeah, like last year was some of the most fun times of my life being a fan because I went in with hey, I hope we're fun. And I went in with, oh shit, we're actually good now. I look at rooting for that 17 Vikings team that I was like, this team's not going to be any good. And then watching that Minneapolis Miracle happen, I was like, it was so incredibly fun and so enjoyable as a fan. And I look at teams like that, or Kyler throwing that fucking bomb back in the day and made them play. Like, it's just, those are the things that should give you hope, even when your team isn't good. And it sucks when you have to take moral victories. But if you're moving in the
Right.
right direction, that's where hope should be, and that's where I think the Chargers are now. It
Yeah.
finally feels like you're finally unclipping the baggage that's been. It's like you've been carrying 200 pounds of weight, and you finally can just go, let's just get past
Yeah.
this and just only go with the
Brandon
positivity that we
Staley
have.
had to go. Yeah,
Stanley had to go, but
absolutely.
like Keenan Allen had to go, Mike Williams had to go,
Yeah.
and it's no
Yeah.
disrespect to those guys. Obviously, Mike
No.
Williams can't stay healthy, but he's a great player when he's healthy, and Keenan Allen's great when
Right.
he's healthy too. But it's a remnant of fucking Phillip Rivers. That shit's
Yeah.
5 years old at this point. Like, what the fuck are we doing?
Right.
And you
Right.
just you got to move on eventually, and it's just
Yeah.
not working.
Yeah. Agreed. Well said.
That's a fun one. I love that we always spend more time on the no hope than the hope. Uh,
All right.
smoking the
Again,
hopium, but it's fun.
yeah. I will. Again, I will try to keep this succinct for my final team here, and it is the Seattle Seahawks. I on the
Wow.
Seattle Seahawks, and I am again surprised at myself. But as I went through again, started with that Vegas win total, and just going back and watching some film, and it really starts with QB play as always. Gino continues to exceed expectations, and I don't know how he does it, but he's fourth in EPA per play on first and second down. He led the NFL in fourth quarter comebacks with 4 and game-winning drives with 5. Big time throw percentage of 6, which led the NFL with quarterbacks with at least 300 completions. Find an offensive line that was decimated by injuries, leading to the fourth worst pass blocking grade according to PFF. You get healthy there, it's going to be a lot better. You still have DK who can take over games. Lockett is the deep threat, and then I think Jackson took them big on the slot's going to be big for them. 3 really really good wide receivers. Again, Lockett probably's lost a little bit of a step, but the other 2 guys can take over. I think Mike McDonald was the best hire of the coaching cycle. I mean, the guy just knows how to get the most out of all of his defensive players. Um, last year Seattle had so many defensive issues as well. They were 22nd in run defense, 31st in tackling, which means you missed the second most in the NFL. 29th in yards allowed, 31st in rushing yards allowed, and then the most first downs allowed by running the ball. While the Ravens under McDaniel were first in takeaway, first in net yards gained per pass attempt, which is pass yards minus sacks over pass attempted times time sacks. And they were the third best in ending offensive drives without a score, as well as third interception. So such a difference in style and in how they're going to run their team. I remember watching on the Colts Seattle preseason game. I watched Byron Murphy drop from a defensive end, backpedal, hit, and strip the ball out of a flat from like a wide receiver, and I was like, this is going to be bananas. Byron Murphy, I expect the corner duo of Woolen and Witherspoon to be top 5 in the league in the system.
Oh yeah.
But Byron Murphy at 16 was a steal item, the 8th best player. He's going to fix a lot of those run game issues that I talked about besides the scheme. And then what's crazy with Murphy is that at Texas, he played the nose more than his 400-pound teammate Sweat did.
Yep.
When they really had to have it. So in goal line situations, fourth and 1 and third and 1 to go, he would actually move inside, and the 400-pounder would play outside despite being much less. So he can hold and stack and shed at an elite level, which is, again, besides being a good pass rusher, Seattle obviously really, really needs that. And then obviously Snyder, I think there's some questions about, reaching occasionally for a linebacker, but you get Russell Wilson off your team and you get, Drew Lock's whatever. That was just kind of because you had to have it. You get Noah Fant, Shelby Harris, Charles Cross, Boya Mafe, Tyreek Smith, Devin Witherspoon, and Derek Hall, plus hitting on Reek Woolen. You get Kenneth Walker late, Abraham Lucas, DK Metcalf, Freddie Swain, Travis Holder, Tyler Lockett. And then you forget he's been there since 2010, where he's always also drafting, Russell Okung, Earl Thomas, Dolan Tate, Cam Chancellor, Richard Sherman, Malcolm Smith, KJ Wright, Bobby Wagner, Russell Wilson, good Russell Wilson, and Bruce Irving, who all were super big in those Super Bowl, the winning Super Bowl team and the Super Bowl runs later in. He also made the tough, but I think correct choice in moving on from Pete Carroll, because again, they haven't been able to play defense in 5-6 seasons.
Yeah.
It's always been their hallmark. It obviously had to happen. So again, in terms of stability, in terms of the coaching hire and what it's going to change in Seattle, and again, Geno Smith continuing to be this completely different player in the second act of his career, in what's going to be probably a tough division. I feel better about them maybe being a 10-11 win team, with the offensive line getting healthier, the defensive scheme fixes, and the additions of Murphy, as well as the stability of Reek Woolen and Devin Witherspoon getting another year. And then again, Jackson Smith and Jigba taking another step to help Tyler Lockett just be your slot guy. And then again, watching Geno throw those layered throws, those 10 to 20, 30-yard intermediate passes, and letting DK Metcalf be the biggest, fastest dude on the field is a way that you can win some games. So I think they're going to be better than people expect.
I All well said. I want to get you've been doing a lot of shout outs, correctly so, for information. I want to give a shout out to a new podcast called Heed the Call. It's the it's two guys from the former Around the NFL podcast that was canceled very
Oh,
unceremoniously.
nice.
But they just did their Around the NFL and Around the AFC, around the AFC and NFC formats, and they had
Mhm.
Michael Sean Dugar or Sean Michael Dugar. I can't remember
Mhm.
the transition of the first name, but and Jordan Rodrigon, and Dugar is the beat reporter for Seattle.
Mhm.
And going to your point about Snyder making the tough decisions that need to be happening and the positive changes that Seattle's already seeing in
Yeah.
in defensive output even during preseason outings. Last year there were guys in the locker room smoking cigars because they got a cheap win and missed the playoffs to
Yeah.
end the season, and the guys from the remnants of the old Pete Carroll regime that Pete
Right.
kept around, that because they were great leaders and all this kind of stuff, looked and they just went, "What the fuck's wrong with you?" They're like,
Right.
"Oh, we're celebrating. We finished a season. Isn't that great?" And they're
Right.
like, and then the beat reporters and the guys that have been there, they're like, Richard Sherman, the Legion of Boom guys, skipped a team event when they were the NFC Championship team because they said, "Fuck that. The job ain't done. Like, we're
Right.
not celebrating this." Like, again, realistic expectations is kind of the Dallas thing again. Every beat reporter out of Seattle is saying the exact same thing you're saying. It's like, this is a different vibe here, where
Yeah.
McDonald just knows where to put people, knows how to elevate the play of the guys that he has. I mean,
Yeah.
I think no better example of that than Patrick Queen from last year. Patrick
Yeah.
Queen going into last year without going into 2 years ago when they acquired Roquan Smith midseason.
Right.
Patrick Queen was being touted as a potential cut candidate
Yep.
because he just wasn't. He was fine, but he wasn't
Yeah.
up to the billing of a Baltimore Raven player.
Right.
And now he just got paid for another team because last year he was a second team All Pro alongside Roquan
Right.
Smith in Mike McDonald's defense.
Yep.
And those are so many things that you need to put into play of all those guys, Justin Matabike, all those guys really.
Kyle Hamilton made him an All-Pro. Yeah.
Like, and trust me, Kyle Hamilton, we both think the world of Kyle Hamilton. Blue chipper of a blue chipper. But
Yep.
certainly he got better under Mike McDonald's
Yep.
care. And this is a Seattle team that has a lot of potential on that defense, but just never realized it under Pete. I don't know what it was about Pete, unless it was a corner. Lately, Pete could not get those guys like he used to.
Right.
And the offense is there to succeed. I'm not going to go crazy, but I can see this Seattle team beating both San Francisco and Los Angeles this year in that division.
Wow. I depending depending on what the Niners look like after this Ayuk and Williams thing for sure, and then the Rams just feel inconsistent. And I don't know what Stafford's going to give you, and Puka's got this knee thing, and Cup's a year older, so yeah, it depends where you get him, and like Seattle's such a big home field advantage. I could see it. I could certainly see it in them pushing for that division win.
Yeah, I mean, if you're asking me, I'm going to take San Francisco. And
Sure.
spoiler alert: when I pick every game next week for this entire season for predictions, trust me, San Francisco will be my first place team in the NFC West.
Sure.
There's something about San Francisco, especially right now, that just gives me the bad juju vibes. Not like Dallas, but it just gives me the bad juju. And I know we're razzing our friends so much when we do it, but
Right.
if the positivity of Seattle is just kind of like there, they were
Right.
already competing with San Francisco the last 2 years when they had no business competing with them.
Right.
And always gave them trouble for some reason. It made no sense.
Yep.
And so it's a team that has enough talent to pop some of those wins off. And then all of a sudden you're looking, if it doesn't go right for San Francisco or LA, just going like, how the fuck is Seattle first place in week 14? Like,
Right.
What is happening? Like, what?
Okay.
They have that level of talent. They could also go 5-12. I don't fucking know.
Yep.
But nonetheless,
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's where I can see the hope. It's when you said it, I was like, I don't know about that one. And then I was like, no, I get it.
You get on board.
Yeah, I can get it. But
Nice.
this has been fun. It's
Absolutely.
it's always fun to shit on the teams that we shit on.
Absolutely.
And to show the real restraint, we didn't just shit on the Eagles just to shit on the Eagles.
That's true.
'Cause-
You did. I gave them two different compliments. I
And trust
hate
me,
myself for
I
it, but I did.
truly believe they have no hope and they're going to create it this year. That's not me being biased. It's truly what I think. But
That would make me very happy.
I
But
want
we'll see.
nothing more than them to blow up. But I think it's actually going to happen, which is going to be great. But we didn't do that because we're professionals.
Exactly.
But this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining me, Brandon. If you
Yeah,
like
thanks for
this
having me.
show, go check out our socials. Go check out the rest of our stuff. Check out the expansion series if you haven't done so already. That was a ton of fun. Whole expansion draft, how would the NFL go? Lots of fun there. You can check out our podcast Tuesday for the ONETA Show. Thursday is the ONETA Football Show. And Saturday, just to unwind and catch a movie before this upcoming Sunday's games. Go check out the ONETA Movie Show. It's pretty cool. Plus the rest of our content Monday through Saturday. All kinds of fun stuff here on the channel. And if you really want to help us with them big bucks like CD Lamb just got, head over to Etsy shop, ptecreative.etsy.com, and get yourself some art. And there's going to be some more Philly hater merch, so if you hate Philly, trust me, I got more merch coming your way. Because fuck Philly. And they have no hope, just like Dallas has no fucking hope. And they're not like Green Bay and Chicago, who has hope, which is scary, but nonetheless. But that's going to do it here for us, folks. Thank you guys so much for watching or for listening wherever you are. Peace out, my friends. Bye!